Hello.
I don't know about you guys, but my spooky season starts on September 1st and goes till Thanksgiving.
Same.
September 1st to Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
So that's how we're kicking it off on Bobby's Cryptid Corner. Before we introduce everyone, I do want to preface a little bit. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk about some spooky things. However, much to my surprise when researching this covers some pretty dark, racially charged social commentary that's not particularly lighthearted.
The past is a little racist,
so
guys.
Let's
a lot.
Let's not confuse our fun on this show with trivializing the tragedies of the past.
Exactly.
Yes. Also, there will be dick jokes.
It is Bobby's Cryptid Corner, and that is how we do. It's how we keep the youth engaged, guys.
This is the thing, you guys. A lot of the times, I feel like, yes, this is ultimately a hate crime that we're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
But with like all American history, I think it always stems in some type of racism, and it's very uncomfortable to talk about, especially if you're of a lighter skin color like we all are. And it makes us feel uncomfortable because we feel like we can't talk about it because it's wrong and all of these things. But at the same time, I think we're just airing out the reality of it. And sometimes things that are uncomfortable to talk about are the best things to talk about. Because if we forget them, then we're bound to repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. And one thing I know for sure all of us has learned is when it comes to certain holidays or archetypes in general that kind of take over particular seasons, it always stems from this background of a culture or a religion that was pre-Christianized, and they went through some sort of trauma, and then we adopted what we liked from that, and we slapped a pretty sticker on it, and we found out ways to make shit tons of money off of it. 100%. So that's just the reality, and I kind of like that we look back into the darker history of some of these things, even though it's uncomfortable.
In addition to all that, we do our best with the research. Always take everything we say with a grain of salt. We are not experts on this subject matter. So that said, if there is anything that could be interpreted as disrespect by like voodoo priests or priestesses, because what we're going to talk about a lot with the zombie thing in general is it's rooted in voodoo and hoodoo and all these different factions of Western African tradition mixed with Catholicism or whatever. But there's so many different interpretations and variations, and what people claim is one thing is another thing to someone else. We're just going off by like the top 5 Google searches on this stuff and YouTube videos that we watched on it. So
yes,
I'm not trying to plant a flag in anything here. I'm just reporting what we read and trying to put our own little take on it. So
exactly.
My name is Bobby. Tonight I'll be referred to as Right Said Undead Fred. This is Bobby's Cryptid Corner, and then clockwise to my right.
I am Bree. Tonight I'm Zombie.
That's actually really funny.
Perfect. Well, that works.
It does. Works great. I am 28 bottles later, also known as
That's
Bottled
funny.
Water and Tony. And just a little pitch out here for anybody watching. We are looking for very, very specific types of people in the future who would sponsor a drinking show.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh.
I might be remiss to say that a coffee company would be great, because what do you need the next morning after drinking with all of us? Coffee.
Especially on a Tuesday night or Wednesday
Yes.
morning.
Right?
Thank
But
you,
since they're
Dorothy.
not a sponsor,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
get that shit
Thank
out
you,
of
Dorothy,
here.
and thank you, Vanessa, for yours
Wait.
earlier.
You guys, are we going to end up looking like
Oh,
Jimmy
wait.
Church, though? River.
No.
Sorry, go on.
That's funny. I am Jamie, and I eat goat brains.
That's
'cause I
rude.
eat goat brains. Yeah,
Rude.
yeah, zombie.
That's so rude.
Goat brains are a
Listen.
delicacy in some cultures. Okay.
I have watched too much Sacrifice, I have to say. Just for this
Wait, what?
episode, I'm over. You guys know I'm a very sensitive person, so like I usually can't look at weird videos and things like that because I can't seem to get it out of my head. Mentally ill. I can't. And I had to while looking into this stuff, and I just can't, like, I don't want to look at a goat, I don't want to look like a cow, I don't want to look at a chicken. There's all those things. I'm like,
Ooh, you're making me hungry.
Ooh,
I know,
snack
right?
time. Yum.
I want the
It's
Barnyard
dark.
Deluxe.
that is the barnyard.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is, like, yes, the title of the show is Bobby's Cryptid Corner. I've said multiple times, we'll just call it the Toddy Waba Cryptid Corner, but whatever.
No,
we
it's
won't
Bobby's.
we won't go into that right now. I don't want to insinuate that an entire nations of people is to insinuate that they are indeed cryptid creatures like a Bigfoot or a Dogman or a Chupacabra or a Mothman.
Chupa.
We want to celebrate all things weird, cryptid, and cryptid adjacent. So don't come after me with that either. All right. I'm just getting all the trigger warnings out of the way.
Get them
Don't
out
come after
there.
us, period. Because like you don't
Yeah,
want to come after
period.
us anyway. Because then Jamie and I are like two dogs you let out, and then now we have Tony. Tony's a fucking pit bull,
Listen,
too.
Tony's
So-
out
Tony
here
will
fucking
fucking
making-
shoot you.
Tony's out here memeing right and left on Twitter
Yeah.
We're
You don't want
constantly
that
holding
smoke.
each other back. If you guys realize,
constantly.
we're constantly holding each other back. We're like,
Being
stop,
like, no,
stop, stop.
don't. Stop
And then it's
it.
the next
stop
person.
it.
We're like, stop, stop, stop.
Now, Tony, I got a little bit of a bone to pick with your nickname of the episode, 28 Bottles Later. We'll get into it, I'm sure, a little later. But 28, this is a reference to 28 days later.
Days
Days later. Oh my
Yes.
God, I didn't.
Which
But also
technically,
28 bottles later, bottled water. It's also a drinking podcast. It's like a triple entendre.
okay,
Yes.
it's a triple entendre.
What's the drinking
However,
word of the
if you
day?
want to get really nerdy about zombies, technically, 28
yeah.
Days
Ooh,
Later
drink.
is not a zombie movie. But
Well, I think we'll
about
get into that distinction, though.
that. Yes.
Yes.
We'll talk. Bree, edge of your seat. We're just
Edge of your seat.
cliffhanging it right now.
Okay, wait, hold on. I might have added a movie then that might not also fit in, but I feel like it does fit in. So now I'm
Steel
confused. If
Magnolias.
you guys do see this later, and you're like, Brie, that's not a zombie movie.
It's okay. We'll talk about it.
You,
We'll talk about
the
why
argument.
it's not a zombie movie.
What movie is it? Do I
Listen,
have
when
to
it
wait?
comes to zombie
Resident
movies,
Evil.
there's a lot of rules about zombie movies that exist. Like there's like very strict guidelines that zombie movies are supposed to adhere by, but I'm sure we'll get into that later.
See,
Yeah,
Enzo's
a
is
lot of
technically
cliffhangers.
zombies. And he's a
But before we
scientist.
Before we jump into it, I just want to shout out to the chat. Enzo's here.
He is.
Hey, Enzo, thank you for being here.
Science
That's
guy.
actually how we know we can have the show, as we went over
Exactly.
last
Enzo's
week.
here.
If we don't have Enzo's blessing, I fucking quit.
I agree.
Pinzar Flactum is here, which is a fun name to
Hey,
say.
Sam.
I think she's the one that likes our tangents, so that's
She
good.
does.
I'm
She
sure
does.
Dogface Boy's here, Wally's
Simon.
World, and I think that's
Walter.
Murder Hornet returns.
Murder Hornet returns.
Dorothy Hawkins,
Dorothy.
She may have left by
Vanessa.
now. Vanessa's here. She may have left by now. I think that's it. We got a packed house.
All
Nobody cares
13 of
about
you.
the zombie.
Can I make a comment on how amazing I think it is that Lindsay's boyfriend is the one that reminded her
Oh, I
to
love
watch
that.
our
That's the whole
show?
vibe.
That is chef's kiss.
Love that.
He's
Beautiful.
a keeper.
Also,
Keeper, Mary.
Lindsay got to hang out with me late on Thursday night. We were up here. It was just me, Enzo, and Keats, actually, Pragmatic. And
That's
the
right,
three
for
of
the
us were
show.
just here forever. So thank you for that. And
Was
you
this
guys stay
in real
tuned
life?
if we rendezvous.
No.
I mean,
there was like
this is
it was
real
like this, like a behind the scenes hangout.
No one. Why does no one ever tell me about these things?
Because
You
we're
were
in the
there and then you
Discord,
did.
not
We
in the
tried.
Discord. Yeah, you were there.
Oh, I was there. I was
You
there.
tried. You tried.
You tried.
I was uploading something, and I had to use my iPhone, and that was not working very well. That's what happened there. So sorry. Anyway,
Sorry.
So we're drinking word of the day?
Zombie.
yeah.
Zombies. Go ahead and bring it up. Bam. Zombie Bigfoot. Bigfoot zombie.
Tell me this doesn't remind
I think we
you.
should start letting the audience decide what the drinking word.
The drinking word is. We probably should.
Then we have to
Did
put
they-
up a poll days
Poll.
earlier.
No,
Days
no.
earlier,
Whoever
Twitter.
first come, first serve. Whoever
Oh, like the
types
first
it in
comment?
first.
Ooh.
Okay.
First
Is it on Twitter?
comment. All right, that's dope. I'm into it.
Hell yeah.
Here's the fucking
Yeah, spooky
BCC
season.
SWAT
It's time to
team.
talk about zombies again. These are not cryptids,
drink.
and we're going to be talking about some pretty heavy content, historically speaking. But let's still try to have fun without bringing the party down.
Amen, brother.
Good
Amen.
luck.
Plus,
to all-
we look
may-
pretty
may-
fucking.
We look great as a tactical team. I'm not gonna lie. That needs
No,
to be on
we
a t-shirt
do.
too.
We do.
Yeah.
That is some Raccoon City Stars shit right there.
And if
Hell
if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that Tony's surrounded by all of those guns currently.
Yes.
He's like, yeah.
And
Guys,
more.
it's Bobby's Cryptid Corner instead of the SWAT team. So you guys have a problem, we'll come out there. Boom.
Now we do have a good, accurate representation of the zombie. Technically speaking, the zombie is something that rises from the grave. Is a.
Oops.
Whoa!
I'm
Whoa!
sorry, guys.
Spoiler alert!
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
go to
now
the
that
Foursquare.
we're doing it's a different format for us today. So my bad. Okay.
It's okay.
Do we not have a slideshow anymore?
Of
We do.
course
We just went
do.
to Four Corners.
We
Four
did.
corner-
Four corners.
let's point it out every time we do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, like with any good not cryptid on or cryptid on Bobby's Cryptid Corner, which again, zombies are not cryptids.
Not cryptids.
This is more of a spooky season special. We got to talk about the origin here. The name zombie. Are we going to get into that, Bree, a little later? But let's talk about the geographic location. In the 1500s to the 1800s, the French and Spanish established a slave trade from like Western Africa and Equatorial Africa into the Caribbean, at the time known as Hispaniola or Saint Domingue. The French third is now Haiti. Much of the zombie lore, historically speaking, comes from the Haitian tradition. Half the, or not half, but more or less half of the island is Haiti. The other half is the Dominican Republic. I also take this with a grain of salt, but I was also reading at one point that 90% of the population of this island was African slaves. So that's a cheery way to start Bobby's Cryptid Corner.
Oof.
That is fucking sad.
It really is.
Especially since I know that the Dominican Republic in general is such a hot spot for travel.
Mhm.
I've heard so many times that it's like the best place to go for resorts, like all-inclusive resorts.
And Sammy
it's-
Sosa's from there.
Yeah.
So American.
Home run
it's
king,
like-
Sammy Sosa.
But that
I'm
happens
sorry.
with a lot of really corrupt countries because Jamaica's like that as well, where it's like really known for these resorts. But if you actually go into Jamaica, it's like not like that at all. And it's super corrupt and everyone's poor. It's like the reason
Yeah.
I will never go back to Jamaica again because I went through the middle of it and was like, oh my God, no, this is insane.
Yeah, I would recommend
yeah.
when traveling the Caribbean, especially independent countries, stay on the tourist trail.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's like going into Hell's Kitchen or Chicago or
Oh, I love Hell's Kitchen in New York City.
downtown LA.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Comparing
No.
Chicago
All right.
to
Let's talk about
this
Chicago.
is a fucking hate crime
Speaking of
right from
crime.
the beginning.
First hate crime
From
of the
the
evening.
beginning. That's like, what? It's all right. Well, you can get away with
wasn't-
this one.
Bree, honestly, when was the last time you were in Chicago?
Not that long ago.
A month or
yeah.
two ago.
Well, there
Yeah.
are
I
some
was just
scary
in
parts
Chicago in
on
June.
par with inland Jamaica. I'll tell you that.
Literally June.
You will get killed.
We had fun. My mom bought like homeless people cigarettes and shit.
Speaking of Chicago and the Dominican Republic, how about that Sammy Sosa? He's a home run king. All right.
Baseball.
I'm sorry.
I
I'll
had
leave
to
it here.
segue back to the Caribbean.
Yeah, back to there.
Chicago. So yeah, we have a slave trade. We all know about that. Horrible time
Awful.
in our history. Bree, do you want to take this slide for me, please?
Yeah. So at the time before Haiti was named Haiti, it was known as Saint Domingue, which makes sense, right? The Dominican Republic. So the French at the time owned Saint Domingue, and they were known to be basically the worst slave owners.
If you're gonna be a slave owner, don't be a French one.
No, yeah. I mean, like, I, of course, think it's Americans.
How
because, like,
dehumanizing.
you grow up like that, but then you learn, like, oh, shit, there's the damn French, right?
Just the
Apparently, like, 50% of the Africans that they would send to Haiti would only, well, at the time, Saint Domingue, would only survive, like, 50% of them would only make it a couple years. So it was a really fast-turning clock here for importing new slaves, unfortunately, because they would just work them, and of course it came with horrible beatings and treatments. We all know how disgusting it was, but the fact that they couldn't even hold on to like half of them for more than 3 years should probably tell you how horrible it was. And so the idea of a zombie came from the archetype of the zombie, came from their living conditions here on the plantation, because they were sent here to work in these sugarcane plantations, and it was so bad that when you think of our traditional zombie, you think like you're over just, it's hard not to say that word, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just drinking when I feel
they
like
were not
drinking.
just overworked, they were tired, they were exhausted, they were worked to the bone, they were like the Walking Dead. So that's where this came from. And so the Haitians believed that if they could survive this when they died, that they would return to Langeni. I might be saying that wrong, I'm sorry, but that literally just means how do you say Guinea? Is it just Guinea?
Sure.
Guinea?
Guinea. Why do I want to say Guinea? Sorry, I saw the A. Guinea. Really? Okay. Langini. Anyway, so they thought it would literally bring them back to Africa. So it was like they would have to sit through their time here. And if they made it through, they would return to Africa. But at the time, a really popular move, because of how horrible things were, suicide was really prevalent there in the slave culture. So it became this almost like a superstition. Like, if you can survive this, you will go back to Africa. If not, then you will be condemned to be the undead, and you will spend eternity working in the plantations. So they have to fight to stay alive in order to return to Africa.
I don't want to jump the gun on my like speculative thesis on this whole phenomenon. But like, okay, so you think of like a zombie, like think about like how we strip people, like in order to control people, the best way to do that, best in the most effective way, not in the most morally acknowledged way. You strip them of their autonomy, their individuality, their family, their culture, and then more or less, for lack of a better word, like almost brainwash them into being these like subservient like husks of people that are only there to perform labor for their authorities, right?
Mm-hmm. Pieces
Oh
of
no,
know.
Bree.
So
What?
What
No,
was
I'm
there's
your
just
actually
thinking.
reaction?
I was just thinking that we don't know if it was them, the people, or if it were the French slave owners, maybe feeding that into their minds.
Yes,
That
yes,
to
no,
well,
stop
that's
them.
that's
what
what
I'm
he's talking
implying
Yeah.
here.
about.
That's what I'm
Mhm.
talking. It's a way of control, but I don't want to jump the gun on that. I got a whole fucking
Right.
rant on that a little later. But
Yeah.
so you have a couple different variations of this. On one hand, you have the Jumbi, which is like there's a lot of
That
different
counts.
derivatives of the word. Do we have a slide on the origins of the word zombie, by the way?
There are so many.
Okay.
It's insane.
There's another picture of slavery. Okay, here we go.
There we go.
The term itself is pretty indisputably traced back to Western Africa or Central Africa. So you have the Nzumbi, the corpse of the Mitsogu language of Gabon, the Nzambi, meaning the spirit of a dead person in the Congo language, Congo with a K, because I noticed that as well.
Congo.
When doing, I don't know what Kikongo zombie fetish means, but the point is the word zombie is very derivative of possibly from a combination of all these different cultures and languages, right?
Well, yeah,
Right.
obviously, because it's like it's so far back that you can't be like in writing. This means
Mm-hmm.
this means that, because there's so many different factions in Africa. But regardless, they were all taken from here to
Right.
a huge part of Saint Domingue.
Mm-hmm.
And you
So
can see that word. You're like, oh, I can. I mean, you look at Zombie just for example, and that's the most complicating one. Sounds just like zombie.
so going back to like the kind of like control tactic or the control strategy of this this phenomenon, it's like there was this fear of like a cursed state. There was one called the Jumbi, which is more or less a malevolent ghost or spirit of
Mhm.
the dead. And this is kind of an assimilation of African and Dutch and English mythologies. So a big part of this whole story is how all these various cultures from West Africa mixed with whatever kind of indoctrination you're getting from like the French or the English or the Spanish, whatever the Catholicism, whatever it may be, that the Westerner influence kind of all assimilates into what we know as the zombie, not so much the 20th century Romero zombie, which we'll get into, but this kind of more traditional Haitian zombie.
Mhm.
The Jumbi is associated with death, possession, and slavery transformed to become the zombie. Zombification was more or less used as a threat and in a source of fear of zombification as a way that colonial rulers could control the slaves. So you're feeding people fear in order to control them, which is a tale as old as time, if I might.
Till as
Tale
old
as
as
old as time.
time.
So there's
Yes.
actually a lot of parallels between breaking somebody down and removing their culture and everything. A lot of that, when you were talking about that, Bobby, reminded me of the way that basic training for the military is set up. It's set up to strip you of all those individual identities
Mm-hmm.
and then build you back. This is where it differs. It builds you back as a cohesive team, but
Well, I bet there was some of that
initial
too.
phase.
But yes, it's the same tactic of like stripping someone of their individuality or humanity, if you will, or their culture, and reforming them and reassimilating them into this new former version of themselves to better suit whatever the goal was for the authority.
It fits very well with Scientology too.
Or cults in general.
Just cults in
Yeah,
general.
I guess cults in general.
Or fucking MK Ultra, which I'll talk about in a second. Like
Yeah.
all of this
Yep,
is
all
like
part of it.
super like this is a motif in a strategy used to control people like in various contexts throughout history. So
And it shocked me. I had no idea how big of a background this was. And you guys should know, like, this is still happening. So we're obviously going over like the Haitian culture and where zombie came from, but it is still happening today. And that's what blows me mind.
So we have what's referred to as voodoo, and when I was talking about it earlier about how there's difference between voodoo, hoodoo, it's all different geographic and cultural influences. There's people that debate about the official definitions of each one. It's all very much a gray area in a Venn diagram that overlaps quite a bit. So again, we're not experts on this, but what I've gathered from this, so voodoo is probably, I would gather, the precursor to the official voodoo. And this was more or less the assimilation and integration of all the several West African spiritual practices. And one thing about this, there's a great multi-part documentary on YouTube that was aired on PBS. I wish I could think of the name of it right now, but I want to give credit where credit's due. That takes you through this whole thing.
Like Monstera?
Yes, that's it. So basically, one tenet of this is that the human body is basically just flesh manipulated by two facets of the soul. One of those, can we go to four square, please?
Yes.
I don't want to blow my load on the Bokor yet.
Me either.
Okay. One of them is known as the Groban Ange, which is referring to the motor functions, the movement, the breathing, the typical kind of interaction with the tangible world type stuff.
The body.
That's one half of the animate part of the soul into the body, right? Then there's the Groban Ange, the Tiban Ange, also known as the Petit Banange, which is the ability to your spiritual side, contacting spirits, memory, consciousness, authority, all your like cerebral personality, individuality, more spiritual parts of the soul. So it's said that according to Vodou, either of these can be stolen and manipulated to do the bidding of whoever manages to do that. For example, it's believed that these can be captured in a bottle, for instance. And now we see the rise of the Bokor. I wouldn't even call it an archetype. It's like a real, I mean, it is, but it's also a real, more or less, for lack of a better politically incorrect term, I guess a shaman or a witch doctor that can be used for both malevolence or benevolence, I guess. So this is more or less the zombie master. And a lot of times it's traditionally presented as, I guess, like a former slave, or it's not ever really presented as a white colonist. It's like somebody that knows the practice of these cultures. And these are your sorcerers of that cultures, or your high priests or whatever. And they're said to be able to, again, both practice dark magic or benevolent magic. And part of that black magic means the creation of zombies. So just the long and short of it, the treetop overview of this is if a corpse is not like properly attended to after it dies, the Bokor can reanimate the corpse, void of any soul, to do their bidding. And generally they would put them to work as laborers, which ultimately means emotionless, mindless, subservient zombies, right? And sometimes they're brought to this state by like inducing a coma-like state via some sort of poison. The corpse is buried and then it's raised from the dead as a zombie. So
yeah. Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback on you with that the Bokor really does mean just of two hands. And it reminds me a lot of like with Satanism, you know how when you see Baphomet sitting and he has no one can see me, but it's like, you know, your right and left hand. So it's not just always doing good, but it's also that you could do bad.
As above, as below. Yeah.
Right. And it's like the biggest difference here, I think, with our current pop culture zombies and this is that we feel like zombies are just on their own mission. Like here in pop culture, they go out, they do their own thing, they be eating people, whatever. but not in this case. The Bokor is the slave master, and you can't even be a zombie unless you died of an unnatural cause. So like something that like an illness. Or am I getting ahead of you?
No, but I was going to say on that note, going back to the whole control aspect of this, evidently there was like suicide. They would use this as a way to prevent slave suicide. If you kill yourself, you will be cast into
You'll
an
come back
eternal
as
life
this, yeah.
of slavery.
It's like you're cursed.
Like you will not escape this via suicide, because if you do not perform the actions of the master within this life, if you do that and die of natural causes or whatever, like you have a chance of an after, like a acceptable afterlife. But if you were to kill yourself and escape that way, that's a way in which you will be summoned to remain a slave forever.
Well, it's that same idea of like if you kill yourself, you can't go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Almost
for
like
sure.
A purgatory type thing, which is interesting because it's almost like a Catholic influence there,
it sucks because it's like you have to stay a slave, because if you kill yourself, you're going to be an eternal slave. And it's it's like gaslighting you for your pain, basically.
So ultimately,
there.
This was all seemingly, in my conspiratorial mind control lens of researching this all seemingly seems to be a form of like old world propaganda to get people to remain subservient to whatever the master wants. Because again, if you strip someone down of their humanity or their culture, all they know is this life, all they know is this life of servitude. They don't know anything else. If you insert and indoctrinate people with this fear of, hey, if you don't follow the rules here, you're gonna be doing this for all of eternity.
Well, also too, what it is, it's because they couldn't, as much as they tried to strip them down of their culture and their religion and stuff, they still had their beliefs and never went to their belief system, right? So a way to control them is they adapted versions of their beliefs into something like this. So because these people were already prone to versions of hoodoo and voodoo and things like that, they were just taking bits and pieces of it, twisting it, and turning it to their narrative.
Right.
But we still don't know who did that. I think it's we can assume that it would be slave owners to feed their ear, but regardless, this is still a part of their religion. And I kind of feel like maybe it's a way to keep people going.
That's also goes back to what we were saying earlier about how you kind of co-opt facets of someone's traditional religion to exploit it to your own benefit. So maybe it is part of their religion, but it's also twisted and corrupted and perverted in a way to exploit the labor of these people or something like that.
I just want to make it known that this is hearsay, because as far as like what the meaning of all this is, it appears that it comes from the slaves and not the slave owners. But we are surmising in our own brains because we're like so smart. That it probably they were being fed something in their ear, as most cultures were, especially in that setting as Christianity starts to spread and they just tried to take over the world.
Yes. Yeah. So the main takeaway here is these slaves of the time were more or less terrified of becoming zombies. Like that was not a preferable outcome with their life or afterlife. Interestingly enough, here's an example of a Bokor. If you look at in pop culture in kind of a silly, ham-fisted way, you see like Papa Shango from the WWF in the 90s, or like even Rob Zombie kind of takes on this aesthetic in some of his stuff. It's an archetype, but it's also like a legit thing that still seems to be prevalent today.
You think witch doctor. Like, this is a witch
Mhm.
doctor, right?
Yeah, very much.
A voodoo priest, a voodoo priestess. And it makes so much sense because I feel like now most of us see a difference between our body and our consciousness. And that's basically the Haitian belief. They just, of course, have different names, but it's like your
Mhm.
body. That's like this robot, but you have the consciousness and the soul that's separate from that.
Right.
And to be able to pull that and extract it.
Right. So ultimately, the zombie mythology, as it was propagated by the authority, was one of you can't escape. You can't like this is a means of enslavement that was immune to death itself.
Mhm.
Right. So if you try to escape this via death, it's only going to cause more enslavement. And again, it feels so much like trauma-based mind control, or like the images of people with lobotomies in a way. Like, we'll look at some photos a little later. Like, it just looks like these people are just kind of like controlled husks of their former selves. And I'm reading this book right now. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's basically about overcoming like childhood trauma, and how trauma more or less suppresses your like internal spirit and your individuality, and it creates this like this fake exterior as a way of coping with it. And I believe there's people that know how to manipulate that. You see that everything from zombie mythology or slavery all the way up to like things like MK Ultra or trauma-based mind control, things like that. I think that there's some sort of common thread with all of these things.
That's why even at the basic principles of therapy, they're always like, heal your inner child.
Mm-hmm. That's the name of the book I'm reading.
Always. It's
Healing
always
the inner
heal your inner
child.
child, because that's the part of you that's always hurting. The part of you that's like your most innocent self that built the barriers. If you don't confront and heal the inner child, you are just healing like it's like on a roof. You're just healing like the little flappy flaps at the bottom. You're not really fixing like the foundational roof of your house.
So it's like when you come into the world, you have this innocence, this childhood spirit, this naivete even, or this your soul. I guess your soul would be the cliche. And then that can be suppressed by various forms of trauma, and then a new version of like a new almost like corrupted version of oneself suppresses that, and that's something that manifests like more prevalently in those situations. And that's the whole theory behind this, is like, as long as you can confront that and heal, like you said, heal the inner child, you can evolve past that.
I just want to point out, in keeping with last week's, are the Bat Squatch episode.
Okay.
Ooh,
I will find a moment to make a joke about childhood trauma. I just haven't found it yet.
It's a great episode to do that on.
Yeah,
it is.
This one, Bat Squatch was such a dope episode. If you guys haven't watched that, please watch it when you're done.
Go back, yeah.
All right, let's get into the Bokor.
Ooh.
Why don't you take this, Brie?
All right. The Bokor, man, there's still so many of them now. They are meant to create the zombie powder. And this is a secret concoction now. You will read on the internet of people saying what it is, and that's not fucking true.
Is it like his Tang?
Exactly.
It is 100%.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed too, is like all this magic information, like you don't get to just know it by researching it on the internet. It's like you have to be anointed by the culture and community to be privy to this type of witchcraft, I guess, if you will.
Hell yeah.
I guess,
They refer to it as, it is referred straight up as black magic.
Yeah, black magic. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, like you said, like we literally are scratching the surface here. There's no way in hell, like they're so deep, it's not going to be written down. It is passed down through generations, and only though in the knows of the knows that are actually there and the ceremonies know how deep it gets. And if anyone has time, and I said this to the group earlier, I would recommend just watching Hamilton's something. I'm sure you guys have watched it. He's the guy that does all the drugs or whatever.
His 6-part
on
series.
The Vice guy.
the Vice guy. He looked
Yeah.
into this for just the drug itself, for the zombie powder, and he went through like hoops to find a Bokor that would do this on camera without asking for an ass ton amount of money in only US currency, and that was willing to go on camera. And they said over and over again, like, Americans, don't understand the Haitians, they don't understand voodoo, they look down on us, they have no idea. And I can't just show you guys this. This isn't something we can just show. It has to be secret. It has to be like small. So a lot of the times it would like, try to kick out cameras or whatnot. But I think it just speaks to their struggle. From what I got from it is that they really do have a struggle from wanting to prove themselves to outside cultures. Because Americans look at voodoo as like so nasty and gross and all this stuff, which is also probably a lot of propaganda from the time. It's like that's embedded into our culture about their culture, and also not giving it away. It's like,
Well,
I want you to know it's not fake, but I can't show you that it's not fake.
And we talk about it all the time. It goes back to what we talk about, how like this Western mentality of like the suppression of the old world mysticism or magic and or religion or spirituality or whatever, and how we're like such a product of the scientific method and what's observable and tangible in the real world and blah blah blah, which is like super duper like product of the Enlightenment Western mentality. And like you said, like for better or worse, we like Westerners went around the world to try to eradicate any kind of remnant of that didn't fall in line with Catholicism or Christianity or whatever. So it's that same thing as like, okay, we're gonna let you be spiritual, but you got to do it like on our terms, and this is what that looks like. And that's how we get this you have a lot of different slave cultures like still practicing in secret or assimilating with other African cultures into new things. You have like the Gullah people of like the Carolina, off the coast of Carolina or in the Carolinas, where it's like they tried to like establish colonies to preserve these things, but inevitably it's going to be on some level infiltrated by the influences of like their surrounding cultures as well.
Yeah, so there is one person that's like in charge of the entire he's like the voodoo king, who they are literally in charge and control like cops, laws, schools, like things like this. And they are, of course, also in cahoots with all of the Bokors, because the Bokors are the ones that make the powder. They know the ingredients. I wouldn't doubt if there were different variations of ingredients, depending on like the Bokor. But one of the main components in it is the TTX, was
tetrodotoxin.
Tetrodotoxin. So that's found in lots of different marine animals, but definitely in the pufferfish. Now, if you really were to abstract just the poisonous part of this, I mean, it's like smaller than the tip of a needle is enough to kill someone. So you have to be very careful to know your measurements, your ingredients that you're mixing with everything. A lot of the time it's like skulls. The videos that I've seen, it's like, oh, this is the skull of a young boy, or this is the skull of an infant, or things like that. And they don't get into whether or not they killed the infant or the boy or not. It's just there's bones, maybe bones of the innocent. But they crush it down into a powder, so they can either like use this as a paste, or they just put the powder on you. And this is what they do this is a part of the zombification process. You would just like rub this all over the body.
Yeah, you see that like that classic trope of the Bokor like holding his hand and blowing. Yeah.
Now, the thing here is to decipher whether or not, because, did I put this on this slide? Because if you're already dead, I don't think it has the power to bring you back. But at the very minuscule amount, it can bring you to a point where it's like you're dead. You know, your breathing is so shallow that it's not really picked up. Your whole body is in full-blown paralysis. So you literally cannot move a muscle. Yet somehow your consciousness has remained. So it's like almost like it kills and paralyzes your entire body, except
locked-in syndrome.
Very minimal amount of brain capacity.
That's locked-in syndrome, where you're completely conscious, but you have absolutely no control of anything, maybe other than like your eye movement.
I think I have that at work every day. Like, I'm just blacking out, and I come out and clock out on the other side.
It is really intense. So what I don't know is, could people maybe be alive? They put this on them, and of course they respond that way, and then they stay in this sense of
Bernie's too.
Of like dead or alive.
So I'm about to blow,
just like Weekend at Bernie's too.
Just like it. I'm gonna blow your mind, Brie.
Do it, Tony.
You know what this sounds like? This concoction of ingredients that leaves you just barely alive.
Fentanyl.
No, that shit
way to bring the party down.
Sorry.
It sounds like
downers.
Like what an anesthesiologist gives you when you go in for surgery, right?
Mm.
So it shuts your entire body down, it shuts down your nervous system and everything else. You're breathing, but not really under your own power the entire time. So it's just like, you know, maybe this led to some modern day medical
that's possible
breakthroughs.
Yeah, and one thing I was reading about, like when you're in this state, they mentioned that it's not only like you're emotionless kind of automaton, like you don't feel pain either.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah. Just
so
like
a suppression of the nervous system or something.
I saw, because I told you guys looking into this, I found myself in some rabbit holes. One of the things I found, they have this yearly ritual that they do, and one of the things they were doing is they were doing it to these little mice, but they were like shaving the back of the mice, putting the paste or like the powder on the back of the mice, and the mice of course are just like so catatonic that they would register basically dead unless they had a severe amount of manipulation, like sensory, to fuck with them, and then you could see that there was brain movement. So they stay in this state, and it honestly sounds like you are in the middle of alive and dead.
Sounds like a K-hole.
You can't just... I mean, from what I know, this is beyond anything that is medically accepted.
Well, no, they do
beyond...
They do medically induced comas all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Based on like how much trauma that somebody has gone through from an accident.
But
so
this
which is like a
scenario, you guys.
A therapy like very much on the rise right now, where they just basically comatose you to like exile your traumas or whatever.
Yep.
You do like the whole ayahuasca or like mushroom therapy or ketamine therapy type stuff. It all kind of feels like that to a degree.
That's so different. You're microdosing that. This is like, there is no way for them to know how much it is that they're putting in of this. I can't say the whole word, so I'm sticking with the TTX.
It's called TTX, yeah.
Yeah, there is no way for them to know. And also, there have been multiple times where these people are making this powder, and then people are able to take it and then take it back and get it tested, and none of it was psychoactive. Because I guess with this TTX, it's like in some cases with these marine animals, like pufferfish, for example, it's not always deadly. Sometimes it's active and sometimes it's not, which doesn't make sense to scientists, because you would think, okay, this chemical is going to cause this. But for some reason, sometimes it's not present and sometimes it is more potent than others. So they really are just playing a straight up guessing game as far as like how much is going in and if it's lethal or not. And it obviously has to be lethal in order for it to work. Sometimes they would put people under this
Like
zombification
moonshine.
process as
Right.
torture, like as a form of punishment. They would put
Right.
them in this, put it all over their body. They enter the state and then they fucking bury them. And you're buried alive.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep. That's actually
But-
why.
Because you're a shit person. They're like, here you go. You're going early. You're gonna get this
Schrodinger's pufferfish.
So that's
So
actually
cute.
why I think it was 100 years ago or 150 years ago plus. There used to be the bells at the gravestones because they didn't
Right.
actually
graves.
know
They didn't
if
know,
you were
yeah.
totally dead,
Dead or not.
but
Mhm.
they ran a string down to your coffin, and if you were alive, you would just sit there and ring the bell.
That seems like such an empty gesture because like I feel like you would just suffocate to death like pretty much immediately.
No,
like,
because the bell had like a hole up that had like
it had a little
literally like
snorkel.
yeah, it was
it
like
had
a snorkel basically where
Oh.
where you pulled the string at so the bell would ring. Yep.
Yeah,
And
but
they had
how
to do it because they didn't understand comas and things like that because
Right.
people's breathing would get so shallow that they did not understand that these people actually had a pulse.
and how horrible
Mind-blowing.
would that
Enzo with the
cemetery
Princess
smell?
Bride reference.
Where?
Right here.
Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. There you go.
He's
No, but
mostly
it's-
dead.
There you go.
But it's true though. But it's this interesting.
Miracle Max.
It's this interesting thing that they, especially back in this time, they didn't understand medically a lot what was going on with people, and so who knows? I feel like versions of this zombie powder have to be completely different from back then to what they are now. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, we also have to take in the factor of what climate change has affected these pufferfish.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tony.
Oh, Tony, climate change isn't real.
What, do
It's
you work for
not.
the World Economic Forum now?
Gosh.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Exactly.
Uh,
Question for you guys: if you were ever given an opportunity to try some of this shit, would you?
no.
Yeah, me either.
No.
I'm good.
I think
Because
I,
I've
people, like,
never
want it.
peed so fast
I've
in my
dabbled in
life
it.
just to come back and say that climate change is real. And that's not a joke.
Okay.
that's what she hung on to.
That's what she hung on to, yeah.
He's a young global leader.
So then I gotta pee. I'm like,
No, I've turned down few powders in my day, but
But you would turn down this one?
I would definitely have second
okay.
thoughts.
If you guys watch the show I recommended earlier, which Enzo is so amazing and dropped within like 30 seconds of mentioning it, he does ask this person, he's like, all right, do it. Because he's like, I can put it on you, a really small amount. And I just need a lime to wash it off. And it's just like, the fuck, a lime?
What is
And
this, prom night?
Hamilton is smart. So he knows, he's like, he's like commentary, like even these molecules, whatever it is, the lime, whatever the citric acid is in the lime is not enough to break down this and this molecule. But he's saying like, you'll be fine, do it. He puts on like a little bit and he's like, I don't feel anything. That there's nothing happening. And the guy gets like offended. He comes back another day and he puts it on again.
Mhm.
No, he doesn't put it on. I'm sorry. He buys it. He buys it from him. But he does end up taking it back here to the States and gets it tested. And it came back as it wasn't active. It wasn't lethal. So whatever the pufferfish shit, the TTX wasn't active at that time.
So
But
it's a question of how
again,
do we
it's
activate the
a
pufferfish
gamble.
poison?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that
What a
episode of The
tickle to balls.
Simpsons from like season 1.
Yep.
Tickle, tickle.
All
Yeah.
right,
Can we
give us
just
the next
recap
slide.
really quick
Oh,
though? So we
yeah.
have
Yeah,
the slaves.
let's recap for their late arrivers: Nathan Allen and Terry Brown, and I think that's it. Enzo's here.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Peppa H.
Papa H.
Anyways, so we
Lookum
have the zombie
spookum.
culture coming from slaves, right? And we have the Bokor,
Right.
which make the powder to make someone into a zombie. They rub it all over you, and you're fucked. There you
So
go.
this
Or not.
mythology seems to have like further even been exploited, even in like the 20th century. Where are we at on the slideshow here?
Hold
There
up.
we go.
We're not
All
there
right.
yet.
All right.
So this is a perfect imagery of son.
Oh, this guy. That's right.
That's right. So
I'll shut the fuck
this is
up.
perfect imagery of a Bokor right here. He's got his little like powder thing in his hand. He's got his chicken. He's probably gonna kill that in a second. And then these are his two zombies. And it's weird. They wear white drapes like ghosts. And a part of me, I didn't get to look into this, but I feel like I wonder if this is where we get the imagery of a ghost, like the ghost archetype, with the sheet over him, because the zombies in the Haitian culture, they always have the sheets over them. They don't chill without it. So if you guys watch that Hamilton show that I've now mentioned for the third time, he does convince the guy to let him see a zombie
on Broadway.
And I'm half and half about it. At first I was actually really freaked out, but it is sitting there with the sheet on it.
Well, I think you missed the little kid zombie down here. Right there.
I drank it. Oh wow.
I gotta get a drink real quick.
So it's just weird to me that they're always wrapped in sheets. And that does happen on the show.
But I'm sure that also goes back to the
zombie.
culture. It goes back to the culture, though, of wrapping the dead. That's something that's been done for a very long time, whether it be in sheets or gauze or clothes or other things. Like they're always constantly wrapped in something. So I'm assuming that they're treating them the same way. Like that's how they're distinguishing them as dead. You know what I mean? Is the wraps.
No more clothes for you. No Levi's.
Yeah, just sheets.
Just sheets. Like, I get my Levi's. You get these sheets, and they're not 1,200 Egyptian cotton.
I like this, so that the bones won't fall. Agreed.
Oh, that's smart. I really need someone to watch this show so someone else can tell me if it's a real zombie. Because it blew my mind.
I feel it.
He's like sitting there in the corner, and he like throws some salt on it, and he's
you
like,
should have fucking clipped that out.
I didn't want to get copywritten by Viceland of all places.
Just that part, though. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I really wanted to Bobby to see this.
He's right here.
Clairvius. I can't say his name. Clairvius.
Narcissus.
Okay, Cian. The real zombie. In Haiti, 1962. Clavius. He has like severe fever, shortness of breath, all of these things that he doesn't know what's wrong with him. He feels like he's sick. He checks himself into the hospital. And about 3 days later, he dies. He's pronounced dead by 2 individual doctors that signed the certificate. They're like, he dead. They call in his sisters, Marie Claire and Angelina, Narcisse, and they're like, for sure, not my bro. And so they bury him, and the local cemetery, which is like known in this little like scrappy town there. I can't say it, Leicester. So he dead. He's sick. 18 years later, Clairvius shows up on the block. He hits up his family in the village, and he's like, I'm alive. And they're like, no way. So they actually do give him like a little test. They ask him these questions that only he would know, answered all of them correctly. He tells them that from what he remembers, he was in his coffin. And a Bokor, someone showed up with the paste, with the powder. And of course, full body rub down. And then the Bokar's like, you're mine, like the legend goes. So he was claimed along with other people there in the morgue. And he had to work in a plantation until the master died.
Oh, and then he was released.
So the master dies. And then when the Bokor died, because he wasn't reapplying the paste, he was able to slowly and eventually snap out of the trance or comatose that it puts him in, and no more hallucinations. He snaps out of it, and he's able to return to his family for a whole another 6 years.
Wow.
What?
That's fucking crazy.
That's crazy.
Look at this face.
Sci-fi.
Okay, so this is our first of the sci-fis, the ones that I want to talk to you about. This is the first of the sci-fis. However, you should note that one of the I don't remember which one it is. I think it's a movie, or was it the book? One of them, of the things that we'll go over, was written and inspired by the story.
Okay.
Serpent in the Rainbow. Dave's
Serpent in the Rainbow.
Zombie. Serpent in the Rainbow, yeah.
Serpent in the Rainbow.
Which is highly recommended. Starring Bill Pullman.
See how it connects? So if this guy never came, if there was no zombie.
You said that like cranberries.
Zombie, like zombie.
I was watching videos of the cranberries earlier today, actually, unrelated to this research. And I can't figure out if I like her voice or if I don't. It's been 30 years. Still can't decide.
How could you not? Oh my God, she's amazing.
It's kind of annoying. It's kind of like, hey, look how unique my voice is.
Yeah.
She's talented, but whatever.
Here's the thing.
This was the first CD I ever owned.
Here's the thing, Terry Brown, about the kidnapped and drugged, maybe, but also the sisters were very, they were like, we buried him. We ID'd his body and then we buried him.
We buried him and dissed my brother.
And he didn't just convince the sisters, he convinced the whole fucking village.
Like the whole
Because it's
town.
like a small village. Yeah, the whole, because it's different there.
Right.
Human trafficking.
Hey now, what's up, Gorilla Gamer? And they're like, what color was your chonies when you were 3 and you shit yourself on the block? And he
was like, they were purple. And it was like, oh my God, yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to think about him. My skeptical mind wants to say no. However, I feel like learning about the back history of zombies and knowing that a lot of the time belief is the biggest part in all of magic. And if the person that is going to become the zombie believes in that, and then the practitioner, the Bokor also truly believes in it, I think you can actually manifest that reality, especially if you look at like the composition breakdown of the actual, pharmaceutical, like the actual chemical that it causes those types of symptoms. I don't see why not.
The pharmacology.
It's mind-blowing.
Should we factor sci-fi this
Look
one
at
now,
this.
or is there more info?
I'm back with my babies.
Let's I think we should.
You guys want to factor sci-fi it now?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it now. Fuck it, let's get it out of the way.
All right, Bobby, just say it.
Bobby,
I
off the
don't.
top.
I is there something even more middle bitch than middle bitch? Because I just feel like everything I know about this story was told in a 3-minute blurb by Bree.
So I'm
which is fine.
unbelievable.
It's not your fault. It's fine. But I just don't want to take a, I guess, middle bitch. Like, I don't really.
You don't want to
I
take a
just don't
side?
know enough about it to make one way or the other.
All right, Bree, what do you think?
You know what? I'm gonna middle bitch the story as well.
Mm.
But again,
Then I'm gonna sci-fi it.
no. I middle bitch because, like I said, I'm internally arguing with my mind,
with your inner child,
your my inner child, what
childhood trauma, yeah.
No, but we all argue with that mind, right? And I feel like it's also part of American culture. You're meant to think that if you see it, you can believe it, and if you can't see it, if you can't document it, that it's not real. So we're already on the fringes. And this is like a real push. It's like, oh, did he really come back from the grave? Did he really work in the plantations?
All right, Tony, what about you?
I'm gonna sci-fi this. I don't think
Slut.
Epsom salt bath is going to bring you back from the dead. I think this was probably one of his friends that was working in the sugar cane fields. And
Where
came
the
back.
hell did he go?
He was working in the sugarcane fields, and he just knew this dude from like long before, and they're
Stole
like,
his identity.
"Yeah, it happens all the time."
Okay.
Right. That's the only way that this could go, right? Is that they actually did bury their brother, but then someone came back that looked kind of like him and knew his stories and
Right?
pretended
else-
to be him.
Or the family was in on it as well and was like made up the whole thing about him knowing the past and just kind of did it as like a
To make money.
to make money, maybe. Yeah. I'm gonna before we get to that, I'm gonna
They
middle
ain't
bitch
making
it
no
with
money,
everyone.
especially up in Haiti.
I'm gonna middle bitch it as well because I don't know on this one. I'm torn because it's like either it's real or the entire family is in on it, and both.
I
of those
like
are
the
plausible.
mid-roll factor sci-fis. We should adopt this more.
I like that too. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be him, the people, the whole fucking village. But then at the same time,
Well, no,
even if
you
made
could
it up,
convince the whole village. If everyone in the family was a unit about it, you could convince anyone of anything. So
Yeah.
it would have to be that the family would have to be in on it. They would have to know that this was not that person.
The other thing to consider about my stance on this is I was getting a bubbly water through 60% of the explanation.
It's
of the
okay.
story.
It's all right.
well, without this one, we wouldn't have the serpent in the rainbow. So let's
Fucking
go.
awesome movie. Let's talk about the 20th century for a second and how this mythology, or beyond what we just saw there with that middle bitch story we all decided on. There's various accounts of like how the zombie mythology was further kind of exploited for power. So there is an account or an argument made in a book, I guess, called Tell My Horse by Zora Neale Hurston from 1938 that more or less argues like how this evolved within Haitian culture in the 20th century. So, for example, for the wealthy, zombification more or less meant to represent like the loss or corruption of an identity or a life gone wrong. And there's little to nothing you can do to connect back to your family. So basically like a proverbial lost or corrupt soul. Like, and that's how the term kind of evolved, I guess, in a more secular way than the traditional definitions that we've been talking about. And then on top of that, it was also used to control the plebs again. So they would utilize this mythology, this threat of zombification as a way to maintain control, to limit political protests, to intimidate voters from trying to overthrow various leaders, things like that as well. Which I thought was interesting how the phenomenon kind of evolves into something still cultural, but more like grounded in, I guess, like secularism or like politics or something. I don't know. I've been drinking. So we had in the early 20th century, the National Guard occupied Haiti. I don't know why. I didn't go that far into.
We tried to help them. From what I understand, we're trying to help them, and we decided to get the fuck out because it's still a really shitty situation. And why is it that the countries that have the things that we need the most?
It's important not to try to help people using the military.
I mean, it's the leading country or place for tobacco, but yet they're poor. Like, Marlboro, step it up.
It
like,
reeks of like the PR veil of it all. I honestly didn't do enough research as to why we were there. But we're in a lot of places throughout history.
Lots of places.
The point is, a lot of U.S. military observed a lot of
stuff,
practices, cultural practices of the Haitians, and brought those stories back to the U.S. in a possibly embellished or misunderstood, exaggerated kind of way. I would go so far as to say, But there was I guess this guy was more like, he was an occultist and a journalist and a writer and like a world traveler. There was a gentleman named William Seabrook. And this is kind of our first account of zombie lore within, I guess, American culture in this, or observation of like a white person from the United States. He claims to have observed voodoo rituals, and again, he's been criticized for sensationalizing it. I haven't read the book. I don't know, but I wouldn't doubt it. You know, I wouldn't doubt that this was they took some literary liberties with this portrayal.
Is he fucking the goat?
No. Well, he's just writing one.
We don't
He's
really
just
know.
writing a goat at this point.
Yeah.
Here are deep matters, not easily to be dismissed by crying blasphemy.
Seems dark and offensive by today's standards.
It is. I was gonna add more pictures, and I was like, "Nah, I'm not into it. Let's not do it.
Yeah.
No, let's not
So
do
here
it."
he is, the old world traveler himself.
Well, he's got a little Hitler stash.
Does he?
A little bit.
All right.
Why
That
would he
was
be
just-
all up in there? He was actually like obsessed with the culture. From what I read, it seemed like he got enthralled in the culture.
There's just some fashion statements that just went the wrong way.
Thanks, Hitler. I really wanted that
Wants to be
mustache. It
a
looks good on
Voodoo
everyone.
Bobo.
It's not Hitler. It's Charlie Chaplin.
Yes, which had
Chaplin,
the exact
yes.
same look.
So this was the first text, right, that inseminated the English culture, the white culture. Yeah. With the term zombie.
Zombie.
Zombie drink.
And this is where America comes at. Woo! American pop culture machine.
Yeah, I guess machine is putting it a little, at least at this
It is.
point.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, it was not. Okay, so yes, the first exposure to the zombie lore for Americans was due to pop culture, literature, pulp comics, or pulp novels, and the movie from 1932, White Zombie, starring Bela Lugosi, who famously played Dracula in the Universal version of the film, Hungarian actor. This is like, this was a very like kind of dismissed movie of the time. That's why I say, yes, it was like put into the cultural zeitgeist, but it also wasn't embraced. Like this movie was kind of a throwaway, forgotten thing for a while at the time. It's been obviously quite embraced since then. I actually really like this movie for what it is. And the white zombie thing, it's like they had Haitian zombies, but all the zombies in it, or it was like playing on Haitian zombie lore, but all the zombies are literally like white zombies. And it's about like this woman that he is enthralled with and turning her into a zombie so that he may
This
have
chick right
her.
here. But okay, I put that in here though because I think it's like the tipping point. Yes, it means nothing, but at the same time, without these two, right? Without the book and without this movie, it would have never hit American culture.
No, totally.
So
like
I view this as the tipping point of when the American machine for pop culture was like nom 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 nom.
right, and this was a time when like if you go back and look at like horror
Perfect
movies from like the
Storm.
30s through the 60s, it's just like the
Yep,
market is
I know.
so flooded with any kind of like scary archetype or like giant ants or vampires or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like
the
people
blob.
just take any idea and make it and just churn out these movies. You even have zombies in like Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is like one of the worst movies ever made, but completely watchable. So yeah, it's out there, but the point is the zombie that we know them today in pop culture has far less to do with like the Haitian mythology of it all, even though that was relatively present before we get into the late 60s with the George Romero stuff, which we'll talk about very soon.
Very
Well, this-
soon. It's just
this is-
interesting though, the switch.
Yeah, this is also kind of the beginning of a completely different type of zombie where it becomes this mindless thing looking to consume.
This one was more about control, I think.
But
yes,
as it moved on to George Romero.
Yes. So one thing to note, like a common thread of motif, as different as the modern zombie is compared to the Haitian zombie, whether it be the traditional Haitian zombie or the pop culture Haitian zombie, there always seems to be some sort of like thread of social commentary you can draw from it. In obviously with the Haitian stuff, we talked all about race and slavery and control and stripping someone of their autonomy. Same thing with White Zombie. Now, when we get into the Romero zombies, can we roll that beautiful bean footage? Oh, there's White Zombie again. Okay. So it's important to know, okay, if you don't know, George Romero directed Night of the Living Dead, which I'm about to talk about, but this is the Godfather. This is the man who created, whether intentionally or unintentionally, what we know of as like American zombie culture in cinema now, whether it be World War Z, The Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead, obviously.
Creep Show.
This was not meant to derive anything. This film was not meant to derive anything from Haitian zombies. No. It was more or less inspired by I Am Legend, which is Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price was a film before this. I Am Legend was the remake they did with, or that was the name of the book, and then they did it with Will Smith a few years ago. And they were more or less ghouls. They weren't like these just automaton. I keep saying automaton, but it's just like the best word in this con. They were more or less like thriving on like pure primal instinct. It's like a lack of humanity, but only like consumption, like Tony was saying.
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead was marginally received at the time. It was more or less panned by critics, but due to kind of a botched copyright situation, I think what it is they don't quote me on this, but they failed to like stamp it with copyright. And at the time when you did that and distributed it out, it more or less by default becomes public domain. So it was super cheap, if not completely free, to distribute on any kind of local cable, creature feature, late night things or drive-ins or whatever. And then you have the whole thing about Night of the Living Dead was often screened double featured with kind of early blaxploitation about slavery and things like that. And that's where we get more of this claimed commentary on the civil rights era of the time. But again, this is the origin of the slow moving kind of Contagion brand of zombies, the ones that you shoot in the head. But again, he wasn't trying to create a zombie movie. And he especially wasn't drawing from the Haitian zombie.
No.
Again, the I Am Legend zombie is more or less a vampire or a ghoul or something like that. But that said, this is like when you think zombies, like this is the one. And it doesn't really pick up with that term until Dawn of the Dead, which was his sequel in the 70s. Hold on a second. I don't mean to jump the gun here. Stay on Night of the Living Dead. The other thing about this one is this is kind of your first trope of like the siege zombie, where it's like a group of people stuck inside some sort of building with a hordes of zombies outside. Now, a lot of people yes.
Isn't this kind of interesting too? Because if I haven't seen this movie in so long, but if I could remember, wasn't this movie kind of portrayed in like the hero is an African American?
Yes.
And he's like killing all these white people. And it's interesting that like maybe he didn't take it from the Haitian culture, but in my opinion, it almost seems like it's doing him justice.
That's something,
right?
It's almost like this perfect accidental cocktail of social commentary. It happened. It was released during the civil rights movement. It's a black protagonist played by Dwayne Jones, who Romero claims like this was never supposed to be an allegory for civil rights. Dwayne Jones just happened to be the best person that auditioned for the role. And crazy. Zombies, this concept of like ghouls or zombies, that's just like a really cheap way to create something scary. Hordes of something familiar. You don't have to use a lot of makeup. Even if you look at Dawn of the Dead, it's like they have this weird pale green like makeup on. It's like it looks kind of cheesy by today's standard, but it's like super fucking ominous at the time, and it's also super cheap. If you're going to make an independent film, especially in the case of Night of the Living Dead, you just like get some of the townsfolk to like walk slowly towards a house and get a few shots of it, and like that's pretty fucking scary, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, yeah, a lot of the I don't want to give away the ending if you haven't seen it, but it's definitely worth watching. But a lot of like the rescuers are said to represent like a lynch mob, or but the other thing is like a lot of there are no black zombies that we know of in this movie. And then the whole thing, the whole thing, that famous photo of the little girl, I don't know if it's in the slideshow or not.
We might have it. Oh shit ass.
No.
It might be in the wrong.
But everyone's seen it a million times. That's not even a shot from the movie, but it's just like maybe one of the most famous photos of the movie, even though it's not actually in the movie. And that's all about, you know, the youth has revolted into the mob of violence and blah, blah, blah. There's all these things that are drawn from Night of the Living Dead and read far into, 20-year-old spoiler alert.
I have another question.
It's a pretty profound spoiler, and it's one of the only reasons, not the only reason, but it's one of the main reasons to watch the movie. So I don't want to say it if you haven't seen it. Bree, go ahead. I can talk about Night of the Living Dead all day.
Well, also just to have a comment, I think it is amazing that he said he didn't mean for it to be like this social justice clapback movie, but at the same time it is. And unless you know the true background, I think, of the zombie, you might not see the significance. But then once you do, you're like, oh shit, okay, he's coming back. He's like,
yeah. And contextually, like you can't, like it's like he's really like hesitant to claim any kind of social commentary with a lot of his movies, but it's like, bro, like it's pretty on the nose. Like it's not like you're laying it on pretty fucking thick. And maybe we can give him the benefit of the doubt on his claims with Night of the Living Dead. He's like, it's just a guy from Pennsylvania trying to make a scary movie. Like I don't know why all these people are reading so far into it, but it's like that art imitates life thing where people are going to draw from it contextually from the time that they're in. And this one happens to like hit all the boxes of like a perfect representation in a horror movie of the time and of the civil rights era. So if it was accidental, it was accidentally brilliant in that sense. And eventually he does acknowledge that perhaps the racial or political themes that manifested the movie were maybe unconscious.
Perhaps.
But he still was like, dude, like people are reading way too much into my movies. It's like, well,
that's what people do when it comes to cinema. It's art. Also, is this the movie where the director not required, but asked people to chew on raw pieces of meat?
Yes.
That
sounds right.
Okay, so then that is weird. That is a whole nother...
all the zombies, while they're eating entrails and stuff, are like eating like pig intestine, like the casing with like something shoved in it. I think it was like bologna or something shoved in it. But that's how they made the movie. It was super cheap. It was actually a really cheap movie. And what Bobby was talking about with the movie not being copyrighted, that's why there's a black and white version, and then the color version came out later, even though it was filmed the late 60s.
It wasn't reshot, it was colorized, right?
I think it was colorized. Yeah.
It was remade in the 90s, which I'll get to in a minute, but I think there is a colorized version of it, but it's the same movie as far as I know.
Yeah. It's the exact same movie, same actors, same scenes.
But please watch it in black and white if you're going to watch it.
It's very good.
It's super good. It's super like slow burn. And you got to keep in mind too, the zombie trope moved from obviously the Haitian slave thing to it's less about the monsters outside and more about the monsters inside, how humans deal with this in a survival dynamic and things like that. And some of his films hit on that more than others. Some like with Day of the Dead, hold on, we'll get to that in a second. But so when I say Romero is sitting there going like, well, I didn't mean to put all this social commentary in my movies, I'm like, dude, let's talk about Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead came out in the 70s, And this is probably my least favorite of the first three. It's a good movie, but it's just like it's very slow and very 70s. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it is my least favorite of the three. This one's all about consumerism. You see the first attack is in like a newsroom, which is kind of nodding like media consumption. It takes place in a shopping mall.
Yes.
And it's has some great gore effects, as does the original as well, especially for the time. But
To me, this
again,
is a perfect zombie. It's green. It's blood everywhere. I mean, before black and white, you don't really know, but now we see the green color, which
I love the look of the Dawn of the Dead zombies. Those are my zombies.
So I was just talking with Josh, my real husband, earlier. When we think of zombies, it's like, do we think red or do we think green? And he's like, well, why would you think green? I'm like, because I think of pop culture. The zombie
You look
is
like
like a weird
decayed
green,
corpsey flesh.
gray thing, and it's just like, where did that come from? And looking through all the different pictures in the movies, this was like really the first picture screen grab of a movie where I'm like, that's it.
That's the
This
zombie.
is it. This is where I think I'm like, that's a zombie. So different from where we started in this episode.
Totally.
So different.
But again, we have a common thread, whether intentional or not, of some sort of social commentary motif here, right?
Very much.
So hardcore.
Like it's not just something in a vacuum that happens to be scary.
Yeah, I would say Dawn of the Dead 100%. And if he said it was unintentional, I call total bullshit.
At least Dawn of the Dead is total bullshit.
It's set in a mall.
Yeah. And you got this is an early Tom Savini, if I'm not mistaken. I know Tom Savini did Day of the Dead. He's a really famous makeup effects artist of the time. But great gore. I'm sorry, Tony. I cut you off.
I was just saying, like this movie, and especially the remake that they did. What was that? Early
2005.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder, one of the greatest horror remakes ever made.
It was
up there with Carpenter's The Thing.
Very good remake. But like it just captured that essence that this is all about consumerism, and they're all trying to get into the mall, just like we see on Black Friday, where they're trying to get into the store to consume.
Yep, to consume.
But to that point, sorry.
It's like, do you want to struggle against this horde, or do you want to just say, fuck it, let's just
join them? Yeah.
You can't fucking join them. To the point of consumerism, though, I think that also speaks on the differences of zombie, where we started off at in Haiti. The zombie is not consuming; it's not doing what it wills. The zombie is a puppet. It's a puppet.
Right.
The zombie is only acting upon its master for what its master is to gain. And now it's like it's so switched. We've removed that master archetype, and now we're just feeding this person where before we were never doing that.
What if the master or the program of the modern Romero zombie, the master is like society itself?
Yeah, society. Yeah.
So you've just removed. They're not a slave to the slave owner. Now they're just a slave to consumerism and this consuming mindset, where your entire life is supposed to be you buy, you work, you buy, and then you stop working, you keep buying, and then you're dead.
Well, when you're not working and you're buying, you're consuming information, right?
Yeah,
you're watching TV, you're consuming a media narrative or whatever that's being put out there.
So now
it's just blowing my mind.
I see the similarities between all of it. It
work
all
you
really
buy,
makes
work
sense.
you buy. You keep saying that. It sounds like suck you buy. Oh God.
It's almost like that. There's this really funny meme that reminds me of my co-host on Not For Everyone podcast that says, it's like the disheveled millennial. And it says like, No, I'm not religious. I would never want to be a slave to anything, but it's like surrounded by like Pornhub and Netflix and like
Mhm.
marijuana
Starbucks.
and like, you know, like what are you replacing it
Instagram,
with
yeah.
then, right? Like you're still
Exactly.
replacing that void with something. So
Always.
which even in that
Always.
meme, that disheveled millennial cartoon looks exactly like him too, which is fun.
Love
But
that.
anyway,
All right, next slide, Bree.
Oh.
Now we
on.
get to a real classic.
okay. I'm an 80s child.
They're all classics.
They are.
They
But
are.
Day of the Dead, I probably watch this movie 3 times a year.
Ooh.
This
seen
is
this.
the
Well, that's
aftermath
depressing.
one. This is post Dawn of the Dead. This is after like the few survivors that are left. It's more about the human dynamic in the underground bunker, the scientists versus the military, and then the scientists are figuring out ways to train this specific zombie known as Bub, and you know, it humanizes the zombie, which is interesting, and it's also
Like the Haiti version, maybe?
No.
yeah,
It's like
well,
normal zombie isn't
maybe
under
it's some
control.
sort
but
of
in this version,
attempt
he's
at
under
that.
control.
I feel like it's like domestication, like almost like a
Yes.
pet, like almost.
which
Which
is
you
the
see-
original zombie.
Which you
It's your
see,
pet.
it come
It
full
does what you
circle.
asks.
It come
Yeah.
full circle in Fido from I believe the early 2000s, which is
Hey,
kind of a
Danny.
zombie comedy
Ooh,
about
there you
how
go.
society
Drink.
has basically
Word of the
trained
day.
zombies to do their bidding. It brings it back into that subservient role, but they're still flesh-eating zombies, and you got to be careful. Which is a great movie as well. Oh my god. Oh my god, I was so sick of zombies after like season 4 of The Walking Dead, and now I'm all about them again.
This scene is such a great
I wish we could
scene.
play the video of this.
It looks so fake.
The-
It's amazing.
It's
yeah, but this is
incredible.
where he's like, choke on it.
Yep.
Choke on what?
His guts.
His guts. Yeah.
Day
Yeah,
of the
they're-
Dead is like fucking perfection.
It is the best zombie movie.
Are you guys shitting my dick right now?
It's easily my favorite zombie movie.
If I
but
watch it, am I going to be mad at you guys?
you'll probably be bored by it.
Yeah, you
would
probably
be
won't
bored.
love it.
It's kind of like a concept album. It's kind of like you have to like watch it and really absorb it. It's like a Pink Floyd record. You have to like
Right.
you have to like sit there and like
Take
really
LSD.
take it in.
I love the 2 helicopter pilots that are smoking weed out by their little RV. Like all of it is just so fucking cool the way that movie was.
The
done.
soundtrack's great.
Yeah.
The characters are great. It's again more about the humans in this situation rather than the zombies themselves. It's the aftermath. This is the one
Tony
he made
just
for
wants
like
to
the
smoke
gore
weed and
hounds.
kill people. Okay.
I
That's
just
it.
want to go watch Day of the
Make-
Dead now. Let's
I
wrap
think
this up.
that many modern zombie, that's like the modern version of zombie though, is like what you're talking about, like what it's morphed into now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This looks so fake, by the way. Can you guys not see the hole that his head is coming through? I mean, how do you
Yeah.
watch
Okay,
something
Bree.
like this and you're
This
just like,
is
oh,
sacrilege
it's cool.
at this point.
Yeah, I'm getting like your hate speech right now is real borderline.
Yeah, this is almost a hate.
What?
This is a hate crime,
You're
Bree.
getting real close.
Yeah, you don't
Aw, man.
appreciate. You don't. This
You
is
don't-
what they
you
had
don't-
at the times.
You don't talk about Tom. Tom Savini did the effects on this. He was a badass Vietnam vet that was just a lot of his gore. I think he did the original Friday the 13th. A lot of his gore in the movies is inspired by real life shit he saw in the shit in Nam, which and then funny side note, I was at a horror convention a few years ago and my buddy like walked up to his table and he was just like, hey, so sucks that like everything's CGI now, right? And he got super offended by that. He got really upset. Like, not much work out there these days, huh? Anyway,
I
what-
do think you should give pointers though to people that want to maybe see these older movies, but it's hard for them because they're looking at things and they automatically see his head coming out of like, I don't know, just a piece
A
of
sheet.
wood and if
Can you play the
fake
scene?
body.
Because I don't feel like you're.
It's not the scene. I'm just asking because I know that you watch
I
a
don't
lot
see a
of
piece of wood.
these.
I would rather.
Different-
I would
different
rather
movies.
something that looks fake, quote unquote fake, with heart and effort and practical effect than like some computer generated nonsense. Like, this is so much more appealing to me than any Resident Evil movie or something like that.
Yo, Simon, you better slow the fuck down with them Jaeger bombs.
Yeah, Fido. I was talking about Fido earlier.
Here we
We're gonna talk
go,
about
baby.
Serpent in the Rainbow.
The Serpent in the Rainbow
This
is
is
all
our
about
throwback
Wade
to
Davis.
Haitian zombies in 80s horror.
Yes.
It is our throwback indeed. 1985. The Serpent in the Rainbow by Wade Davis. And a Harvard scientist's astonishing journey into the secret societies of Haitian voodoo, zombies, and magic. So he was an anthropologist, a biologist, and he also received his PhD in ethnobotany, which was all from Harvard. And he basically got a tip from the Varkis. I can never say that guy's names. Clairvis Narkis. Yeah, that guy. Clairvis Narkis. The one that was basically a zombie. He got tipped off to that and then sent his ass over to Haiti to investigate. And kind of just like the first person, who was that guy? I already forgot.
That guy.
That person that wrote the first book, Bobby.
Oh, that would be William Seabrook.
William Seabrook. So like him, heard the story, went to Haiti and tried to investigate and really went deep into the voodoo culture, but his focus was really about botany. It was about what types of plants and herbs could be used to create this type of powdered topical medicine, if you will, pharmacology wise, that could create the effects of becoming a zombie. So he wrote this book, which has been hardcore, not demolished, but I think people really like to pick apart ridiculed because I think people like to pick apart one, because you're dealing with voodoo magic, and because he's trying to mix, I think, the scientific breakdown of botany and how the certain chemicals can affect the brain, but then also how the component of belief
the junction of spirituality and belief,
and that's like way beyond the scientific sphere. They don't, like most people, don't combine your belief with the actual science of certain components. And in this case, you have to combine the both, from what I've seen. And so people definitely like to pick this book apart. But it was a major moment for most people. And from what I've seen from like certain little clips of the stuff that he's done, he's a super smart dude. And it just kind of sucks that we can't take belief into things. I think we should all know. I mean, if we're going to believe in things like the placebo effect, then we know that your belief and your mindset does have a certain outcome. And when you add ritual into that, and ritual that has gone on for centuries, you know, you're talking like generations of people that are born wholeheartedly into believing something, and it just passes down family after family, village after village. All of this belief, I think, just keeps bubbling. And I can see how the mixture of some of those plants and the different herbs and their chemicals could relate when you apply belief.
And when you, like with anything, like one of the big criticisms of mysticism or spirituality, it's like, well, they didn't have science to explain it, so they just like filled in the gap with the void with something else. It's like, well, okay, but that doesn't necessarily like completely discredit, like, it's science compounded upon spirituality, compounded upon science through the generations. It's like, yes, there might be a scientific explanation for various facets of this, but it doesn't change the fact that there were like spiritual implications that permeated through the culture based on those experiences. I'm a little stoned.
My hope for the future, because I think we see these little blips of people, and I think that Wade Davis is one of them. We see these little blips of people that kind of pop up on the radar if you start to look down these different various paths of strange things, of all types of different fringe. There's always like one person that has their toe in mainstream academia that has some wild idea, and it's always linked back to ancient times and ancient cultures, and people never take them seriously, but yet there is enough support in their research to hold them high, and yet they get washed away because it's always belief in science.
Yep.
So my hope for the future is that we start to realize that we have enough of those people like him. We have enough of those weird pillars where we start to see that maybe, just maybe, belief in the mind does have an equal spot when it comes to different scientific study. And I'm sure lots of people will fight that and be like, but that's not science.
Wait, but with that, Bree, I will say then, I think what you're also kind of alluding to is the fact that the science that we have today can't measure any of those things. So I think what we need to do is we need to develop new scientific ways to investigate things.
Maybe. Yeah, I was just thinking more like include them, or maybe not just knock them down and kick them to the surface, because the big B word, belief, comes into play when it should just be like maybe mind process or mind something. And that also speaks to what you're saying, Jamie, is like rewording things.
Well, no, okay, but think about it this way. Okay, not even that long ago, they thought that women had hysteria, right? And they doctors doctors pretty much did orgasms to try to make it stop. They did not understand the science behind that at all. So
they knew what they were doing.
That was
But who's not to say that today it's like that same thing? We're approaching it in a way with the science that we think is the right way to do it, but we're not approaching it with the right kind of science.
They thought the world was fucking flat. For years.
And people
I don't
still
understand
do.
these people. Yeah, that's a different conversation for another
day.
Yeah.
This is the biggest hurdle that we would have.
But I don't understand.
Biggest hurdle.
The arrogance of the scientific community is so ingrained in protecting the institution and appeasing the gatekeepers, and let's not step on any toes of our superiors, and let's make sure it fits into this school of thought that has been
and it
established.
Also all comes down to funding.
It comes down to funding. There's so many different things.
I was going to say that we've talked about that before, big time.
Right. So it's yes, you have even in the Bigfoot world, you have I can't believe what's his name? Jeff Meldrum is still employed by university because he is the Bigfoot guy. He is the expert. And it's just a miracle that guy still has a job in academia because it's so shunned. And I don't know how he worked that, but it's that's one anecdote of this. So many people, I don't understand how if you question the mainstream narrative that's fits into the scientific model or whatever, the arrogance of dude, the belief of humans has been the consensus of humans, even the scientific consensus of humans has been disproven over and over and over again throughout time. And whether you want to say that paradigm shift based on people's general consciousness and collective belief and blah blah blah, that's a whole different thing altogether. But the fact is we're not done, and I don't understand why people dismiss things, because we're not done. We're not there yet. We're not even
Can
close.
we make that a fucking sticker or a fucking t-shirt?
Done.
Science.
Right.
We're not done.
We're not done.
That's the biggest hurdle, Bobby, though, is that I just don't.
We're never going to be done.
No, for sure. With science, we'll never be done. But I hate to say this, but a part of me, only because I just thought this, could it be that a huge portion of duality in humanity will never go away until certain science dips their toes in that belief, mind, mental consciousness world?
Well,
because as of now, they're so separate, and science will not let you in. They're like, what do you know? No.
Look at
Doors
fucking
shut.
UFO disclosure right
I was
now.
like, look at UFO disclosure. It's fucking
Yeah.
imploding on
Like,
itself.
I
It
was
is.
gaslit for like my entire life. Like, you're fucking crazy. You're checking these books out at the elementary school library. I'm just like, go fuck yourself. I don't care. It's interesting. And
Look
now,
at you
like,
now.
all of
the
a sudden,
king
it's
of
like
Bobby's
okay to
Cryptid
talk
Corner.
about it because he who shall not be named like says it is. I'm just like,
Mhm.
fuck that, dude. I don't need like institutions in
Jamie
the
needs to
government to like
improve
give
her
me permission
presence.
to fucking go investigate things that I find interesting. And like, it's like, yeah,
I
you have to
agree.
have a discerning eye and like try to like smell bullshit when you can, but you can smell bullshit on the accepted narratives and the unaccepted narratives.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So one of the things you have to look
know-
at when you see a scientific like paper or whatever, a research paper or a scientific thing, right? Look to see who funded it.
Yes,
Because-
all the money.
And
Oh,
this
It's
is
all
the
an
biggest
agenda.
this is the biggest thing in
Everything.
the medical community is the people who fund these studies are the people who made the drug, and they fund it under a shell company or organization that they fund. And all you have to do is research 2 or 3
Mhm.
organizations back, and you'll find out that, like,
Look.
say Pfizer funds this dick pill, and they're like, it's great for you. And here's the independent research that we funded to make our pill work so that we
Yep.
can make billions of dollars. And
It's
we only
fucking
So
pay
PR.
that's a huge thing, Bree, because we watched something about this with the when it comes to the FDA. The FDA has a lot less power than you think that it has. Like, it can go in there and it does test these things, but at the end of the day, it actually doesn't have any authority to step in there and to say a bunch of things. They can only just recommend
It's
companies that they
completely
don't do
captured
stuff.
by corporate
Money.
fucking globalists. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too fucking Alex Jonesy on you, but like you have to view. I view the world.
Yeah,
as
you want to
like,
go to jail
okay,
right now? You want to
what
go to
Yeah,
jail?
Jesus.
what is like what are the two like basic drives of like just the most base level instinct of a human being is to acquire, consume, and acquire and consume in order to attract people to reproduce with. You are a
Mhm.
competent individual that can acquire and consume competently in this realm via incentives or whatever. It's all incentives. So like, we are here to acquire things to attract someone that is attracted to the way you acquire things in order to reproduce with them and further push the population. So if you take that and apply that to fucking everything, institutions, jobs, why we get up in the morning, it's always going to be rationalized in some way or another, whether we fall in line with truth or accepted truth or not, to keep perpetuating that primal instinct mentality.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
that
I'm
that
kind of
perfectly goes back to the discussion of zombies. Is
Drink.
if you especially look at the lower class, which is really what the zombies are, right? They're
Oh,
they're
shit.
the ultimate representation of the
You have
lower
lower
class.
class. Yeah.
So all they do is consume. They don't
Mhm.
produce anything. They just purely consume, and they just roam around taking everything that they can. This
Mhm.
is why like the 3 main monsters have like their social background that kind of correlates to how they are. Vampires are associated with like the billionaires, the ruling class, the elites.
Mm-hmm.
Zombies are your lower class people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the werewolf is kind of just like that guy who's just every now and again turns into a monster that could ruin his life and go either way depending on what happens. So that's your middle class. All those 3 monsters represent society as a whole. That's why in times where like there's a lot of social unrest, where there's a lot of like inflation and stuff like that, zombies become really popular because people are just told consume. We have to get through this. And then in times of prosperity, it's shown that vampire movies are like really popular because everybody wants to be that top elite level of society. And those are like the 3 monsters that represent our societies as a whole. and they all their backgrounds completely relate to why people identify with them.
You got the workers, middle management, and the elites.
So
Yes.
monsters reflect our own sociological
It's our own
hierarchy.
inner. Yes.
I mean, yes.
Oh God.
I think that's most of our the art that we make is some version of like how we see humanity, right? So
Yeah.
like all of it, all
the fuck do
movies, all
aliens
of
fit
it.
in this?
Well, see, this is why
Where's Lopez?
zombies
The simulation.
Are
This is
they
why
the
zombies
Illuminati?
are always
They could be.
hordes.
Or Jesus?
Yeah,
Jesus.
religious. I don't know. I if anything, I would have to assume that aliens are more associated with a religious type
The gods.
aspect.
Okay,
gods.
Dickens, calm down
Yeah.
over there. My Jesus isn't from Nibiru.
But this is why
Nibiru.
zombies are always hordes. There's always an endless amount of zombies. There's never an
Mhm.
endless amount of vampires or endless amount of werewolves.
Yeah,
Mhm,
it's a limited hangout.
Yeah.
You guys
Selective.
remember me saying that I wanted to do verses?
By the
Next-
way, drink.
We'll talk
everybody.
after. We'll talk
Yeah,
after.
drink.
But
Alright, bring
you
back
gave
up
me
the
a
next
great
slide.
That was a fun
idea,
adventure we just went on. I'm very fired
Dracula
up now.
versus
That was great. Give us the next slide. Back to the
versus
We have
zombs.
slides. I gotta use the bathroom.
Okay, go do that. Bree will bring back up the slide. Where you at, my girl? Oh, here.
I'm kind of like mind blown a little bit, to be honest with you.
About what? About all our
The
revelations?
whole conversation. Yeah, I was thinking it was more like just a pop culture thing, but not that it might have deep roots in our
Well, all
like
of pop culture has,
fundamental
Societal commentary. Yeah.
society.
but like all of pop culture is like deeply rooted. That's why
It
it
really
becomes
is.
pop culture. That's why
And-
everybody
yeah.
identifies with
And
it.
that's why I mean, like all these versions of art at the end of the day are just our individual interpretations of like what society is, right?
Yeah.
Who can speak for that? So what does Edward stand for? So he'd be like the head of the
vamp-
movies.
I'm
In
not
the
gonna
movies
lie,
only.
I
He'd
have
be kinda
never
the
seen any of them.
head.
Are we talking about the shiny fucking vampires?
Yeah, they're talking about shiny vampires.
I'm
His hair
gonna
is always on
think-
point.
I'm gonna
It's true.
thank everyone that says that in our chats. I really appreciate that you guys think my hair is on point because most of the time I don't brush it, and I hardcore appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
I got. Yeah, I don't know. Jacob is definitely the underdog. Get it?
'Cause he's a
Werewolf,
dog.
Dog.
Hey.
Well, that's
All right,
also
Pippi,
well. I think we'll get into like
we'll
the
get into
whole.
that.
You should watch Serpent in the Rainbow, directed by Wes Craven. Next.
I was gonna say next.
Amen to Wes Craven because you know what
In
a
1988,
boss.
it's a great year for horror movies.
Oh my god,
What
the
is this?
first Hellraiser movie
Yep.
fucking sucked.
What?
I
Well,
don't
Hellraiser
like
2
it.
came out in 1988, I think.
Tell me that isn't a zombie Barbie that they made, and they put
Hail
it in
to
the
the
dirt, and they zoomed in, and they went. "Ee." Okay,
Maybe.
I'm tired of you criticizing practical effects of my
I am the
childhood.
criticizer.
I also never watched The Walking Dead.
Me either.
I couldn't
don't
get past
want
the third
to.
season.
It
I
was
don't
never.
want to.
I liked
not
what I
into
saw,
it.
but when I was done, I was done. I was like, all right, enough's enough. I got other things.
Yeah.
to
It was
do.
like
I'm
the
into
thing
it.
that Bobby was talking about earlier, where it was like a lot of zombie movies ended turning up not necessarily about zombies, but more just about like how humans would react in an
Which-
environment with
which
of
to some degree,
zombies.
that's what it should be.
yeah.
Like, how long are you gonna like burn that fuse? Like, how many seasons
Yeah.
can you do with that?
10,
For sure.
15.
Hellraiser is
Again, and again, I think the reason I haven't watched it is because I would not try to survive with the zombies because it sounds just fucking exhausting.
It's like the that Twilight Zone like theme of like the monsters come out on Maple Street, which if you guys are into aliens and stuff, you should watch that episode.
Yeah.
But it's all about how the entire neighborhood starts to kind of turn on each other, even though the monsters are off in the distance, some sort of crashed
Sounds like
alien
America.
type of situation. Yeah,
Sounds like America.
that's a fucking great
Right.
episode.
Give us the next one.
So we're now kind of diving down to the severe pop culture of America. So we're Walking Dead. There are so many zombie movies and things that it's impossible to show all of it. But as we can see, we've already taken a dive from from our Haitian zombie to the pop culture zombie, and now all of a sudden they went from not moving without their boat car, their masters, to walking faster, running, where before they would not be doing that shit. Resident Evil in 1998, believe it or fucking not, 1998.
The game was
The
good.
video
This came out
game.
in 98.
98. I was 8 years old.
I thought.
Swears.
Oh my God, Brace! Don't ever say that again.
I was
Don't say
8.
you were 8 in 98. You're making me feel 100.
And I'm a late baby.
I was graduating high school.
No, you weren't. I'm a late baby. I'm November 15th. So, like, I was always on the cutoff, which is really shitty because people would be like, do you want to, like, when you're a late November baby, they'll ask you school-wise, like, do you want to go ahead or do you want to wait for
Stay
the next
behind,
year?
yeah.
Because technically I'm at the very end of 90. So, like, a little
96.
slow. A little slow.
This is when
it
this
sucks.
is
It's Lou.
we get
Hey,
the
Lou.
whole the horror survival horror genre in video games, which is a fun one. I think Resident Evil is incredibly difficult to control nowadays by today's standards.
It
But
is
at
a
the time,
machine.
Yeah, it turned into a whole
Shit
thing.
show is what it is.
I mean, think about it. 98 to we don't know how many video games there were.
Yes, we
at
do.
least 10. Well, we do, but you know, just theoretically, okay. They're always making more. I believe we have at least 9, maybe 10 Resident Evil ones, and then we also, because of spin-offs and all that shit, which I love so much. And then the Resident Evil series in on Netflix. And then I also heard that there's going to be another Resident Evil movie coming out in November.
which I haven't watched the
shit.
Netflix show, but apparently it's more
Don't.
loyal to the video game.
I can't believe
No,
you
it's
don't
not.
like
Yeah,
it.
that's
No,
what I
I
heard.
it is.
loved
It
it.
is not.
I loved
I've heard
it.
mixed
all.
things, so I'm not going to waste my time. But I've never been I like the games, but I've never been a fan of like any kind of.
I loved it. I thought it was great, and it was easy to recommend to other people who could watch it and also look at. It has a good storyline.
If you don't
So maybe
like
there
people,
aren't like.
If
it
you're
has
not-
a really good.
tell your enemies
storyline.
about it.
Yeah, it has a really good storyline. If it wasn't called Resident Evil,
Evil. Yeah.
there's a.
I'm sorry.
There's
I'm in the
literally
world of
a-
ufology. Do you think I
Okay.
like most? I'm just kidding.
There's
we-
literally 10 video games that they can draw a fucking story from. And what they
Yeah,
decided to
right?
do was go 16 years later
Right,
and make
Simon?
some
Tell
bullshit
him. Tell him, Simon.
and re-fucking tell the entire original story. You know what? Just leave
No.
this shit alone.
No.
Just stop making
Nope.
Never.
Resident Evil
People
shit.
are going to
Stop.
buy it. They're
No,
gonna
people
keep
are going to
making it.
keep buying it.
Never.
Yeah.
This is what killed The Walking Dead.
Have you ever
Um,
have you ever just typed in Resident Evil on Google or on like YouTube? Do you know how many like fan produced things are out there about
sorts.
this? Like it is literally never fucking ending. Like people
Listen.
spend time and money to make their own versions of it on YouTube.
Yeah, and so
It's a
the
good
thing
show.
is with this is I guarantee most of the people who watch this never played the video games. But in the show, they're like,
Correct.
the real Wesker died in a volcano, and everybody watching it's like, that's weird.
That's not
But if you
true.
played Resident Evil 5, he was killed in a volcano. So that was in Resident Evil 5, the racist game because it took place in Africa and the zombies were black. The actual story.
Bringing
true
it full
story.
circle.
Bring it
Because
full
you have
circle.
to
Bringing
think
it
when
full circle.
right back to killing black people. That's fucked up.
So if we
But
want to
they
get
did, I
super
don't know why the
duper,
Japanese did that.
super duper nerdy, the
Let me
20
cut the nerds really quick though.
okay,
As all franchises and long-standing stories, at a certain point, they seem to abandon certain narratives to rewrite the story for the new incoming people.
Yes.
like
100%.
zombies in general.
And
Yeah.
so I compared that right now to like Halloween. And that's how I could feel it. I was like, okay, yeah, Halloween has done that a lot, and it's frustrating because you're like, wait a second,
And there's
Lori
like
fucking
8 different
died
timelines.
5 movies
Yeah.
ago.
Michael Myers
Yeah,
had a
so
cult.
it's just like a way he
was
did.
Chucky.
Yeah, that was Halloween 4, Season of the
That was.
Witches.
No, that's how
He had a
call,
call.
which doesn't have Michael Myers. It's the best one too.
It doesn't have. It does at the end. He shows up, and it's the worst movie ever. But Paul Rudd is in it, and that's cool. Anyways,
So it saves it.
That's the definition of a good movie.
If Paul Rudd's in it, I will watch it.
Yeah, we'll watch it.
I love Halloween, so that's the only reason I'm going off right now. But I'm just saying that sometimes it sucks when you're like, kind of combined the storyline. You're like, this is my baby, but you have to rewrite it. You got to. If you're a solid storyline, you can't let it die in the winds. Like,
Thanks, Star Wars.
Not everything
Yeah,
is going to be. Star Wars does a fantastic job of rewriting and making it
Does it?
self-prevalent.
Does
And
it?
now
Guys,
it's time.
let's just keep triggering her.
Is it really?
Star Wars did a
Really?
great job of ruining 6 movies. 3
Force
of which were
Awakens,
horrible.
really?
No,
God.
no,
What have we
no.
done?
It all links up together. It's so funny because I made a Star
I would
Wars
rather watch Ewok Battles for
No.
Endor than anything post 1998. That's
I'd rather watch the Star Wars Christmas special. than
Oh,
watch
wow.
Rise of
that's
Skywalker.
fucking fighting words right there. But yeah,
I'd
I
rather
agree.
watch Dune. Dune is such a good movie.
Um,
Anyway,
now we
hold on.
have it in
yeah.
video games.
Wait, no, go to the next one because this is such an interesting concept to me that's taken over the zombie.
why did
Zeist?
does anyone have anything against Dune?
No,
Or no?
No, it's a
Okay.
great
No.
story. What are you talking
Put it back.
Cool.
I
Put
like
it back.
Sting.
We don't care. Yeah. Put it back and go to the next one. Okay.
We don't care about Dune.
about?
Well, we're talking about zombies.
Sandworms.
I'm
am I right?
trying. I'm sorry. It doesn't
It's
work.
okay. Take your time. But the idea of zombie Nazis are this thing that have just taken over pop culture that it's like its own fucking subcategory. And there's so many different like little offshoots and it's become this giant thing where like there's plenty of people like when you say zombies, the first thing they think of is Nazi zombies.
This was actually a niche genre like dating back to probably the 70s with like exploitation movies. There was like Nazi exploitation and then there was like zombies and then like combined them. I can't think of a single one off the top of my head. But yeah, this goes back quite a few decades, but it seems to have been revived recently in this kind of stuff.
Call of Duty
Tell me
did
they're not
like
the
a
worst
real
things
big
ever.
thing with this.
What was Dead Snow was a good one.
That's a great
Nazi
one.
Zombies.
There's 2 of those.
Mm-hmm.
Can anyone here impersonate one of the zombie cries on Nazi zombies?
No.
I haven't played it in so long.
I was gonna try.
This
Give
is
us
when
the
it
next
started
one.
to get like a little tiresome though. It's like, well, like I like a good video game with zombies in it, but like that was just kind of like the like go-to for a good early part of the aughts and into like the teens where they're just like, well, what have we done with this franchise? I guess we'll throw some zombies into it. That
No,
seems
I
to
think
be
it's
out
a
right now.
combination of the two things that everyone would want to kill. Hopefully.
Zombies and Nazis.
When I
Yeah,
think
can
of like,
understand that.
if I could ever try to think of like, what are the two things in the world that could ever manifest that I'd want to kill? It would be a combination of a Nazi and a zombie. Jesus.
Yes.
Lord. There's nothing worse
We got
in
to talk.
the world.
We got to touch on kind of the revival in the early 2000s and the reimagining of the zombie. Which, if we want to get super nerdy, there was quite a bit of conflict in the horror community at the time of whether or not the 28 Days movies are zombie movies. It evolved past Raising from the Dead in a lot of ways, and sometimes it was a viral contagion or like something like that. And that is, if you want to be Asperger's about it, it's a rage movie, not
Right.
a zombie
Right.
movie.
It's a lot closer to the Crazies. And I
Which
believe
is another Romero movie.
if I
Another Romero movie.
remember correctly, in 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later, the pathogen is related to rabies.
Yes. Shockwaves.
Yeah.
Danny, I got you.
And that's why they're crazy and fucking flipping out and everything.
Crazy.
That's why
there's-
they're rabid.
Yeah, and it's not the only zombie movie that does it.
And they're fast. World War Z does it.
Yeah, World War Z does, and they're fast, which is super fucking freaky. because you're supposed to be able to outrun a zombie, but these things are like sprinting like Usain Bolt down the freaking street.
Well, yeah, and you have like the rapid, and then you have like a disease that comes out, right? Or it's an accidental, like the government was experimenting on something and it got out and infected other people, and you have these ideas of like zombies can bite people and then they become infected. You have all these different versions of it.
Totally. Totes.
Oh, and the present. Oh, I have a present at the end. Okay, hold on. Sorry.
And so speaking of these like modern zombies where you shoot them,
Scooby-Doo.
cut them up with the chainsaw and stuff.
Zombieland.
So if they bite you, you become a zombie.
So
but
different,
if you blow their head off and get covered in their blood,
you don't.
You don't.
Yeah,
like the pathogen.
I think that I feel like there's some movies that play with that, like, oh, you got it in your mouth or something like that. I don't.
There are a little bit some, yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on whatever the established lore for that movie is.
Right.
But
like you have a small cut on your hand and it gets in there and you're like, fuck that paper cut.
And there's a lot of weird lore when it comes to zombie movies and weird weird rules that they follow. Isn't there like a movie that came out that was like literally making fun of like the zombie rules and how
Zombieland.
There you go. Yeah, that was like literally just like that. And I feel like it's so true that so many directors and story writers today are trying to fit into this narrative of like what us as society deems a zombie to be and the rules, and because they don't want people to like watch the movie and come out and be like, well, you did this or this and that's
or
why
they're
it's
just
not real.
they're just like ham-fistedly making fun of that.
Oh, for sure.
Reaction as well. Like, let's just get it out on the table now so people don't bitch about it.
I will say most of the funniest parody movies out there about horror are the parody zombie movies.
There's two of them.
And they're great.
Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland. And Zombieland 2, which was surprisingly very good. There's a few other comedies out there. Fido's a good one. It's a fun one.
Naming them left and right.
It's funny that you guys said that too, because like I've been on Black Summer. I haven't finished it, but it's a different take on traditional
zombies
guidelines where you have to get bit or cut, or like you guys were saying. In this case, it's almost like there's already something in the air or something that must be something organic that everyone is already consuming, so that it doesn't matter. Like the second you die, you become a zombie. It doesn't matter how. Like you could be sick, you could have the flu.
It's just you dead, you're a zombie.
Away. The second you die, no matter what, even if you're not around a zombie, instant zombie.
Weird.
It's like rewriting all of the rules. It is
so it's like contagious, but it's also a corpse. So it's like almost. It
is the most wildest thing I've ever seen, because I'm just like, I don't understand how this fits in traditional-ish.
Can I just say,
you guys,
since we're talking about like the pop culture movies and stuff, The Return of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead 2, great movies.
Yeah, that's one thing I was afraid of on this episode. Is like, I'm gonna forget so many. Like, we've had enough
great movies. Yeah,
Return of the Living Dead was a lot of the same. I want to say the same producers as Night of the Living Dead. I'm not sure. Some connection to the original, but yeah, there was already a sequel. The Romero team went somewhere else, and then this guy. I'm killing myself not knowing these names, but Return of the Living Dead is just a fun 80s. That's where you saw the brains thing. That was the first thing about brains. Like that is from. Yeah,
that's like where the off the wall comedy horror kind of came into it, and it was like a military experiment type thing. It's really good. I recommend it if anybody is.
I watch that every October, I would say.
I just watched the second one like 2 weeks ago.
Underrated.
Bree, is this your surprise for us that you have at the end that you told us to remind you about?
Yeah.
Perf.
It's not really favorite. It's not like a super surprise, but in case people that are unaware, in 2011, the CDC did come out with a campaign on how to survive a zombie apocalypse.
How nice of them.
And
Fucking great.
They did.
That's so CDC of them.
Yeah.
Saudi CDC. And
Mhm.
honestly, though, they did it in such a fantastic way where it wasn't boring for people. It was a way for them to like read it like it was a comic. So I'm going to read it for you guys.
Okay.
But I just feel like it's more special that it is the CDC. Should I get rid of all of us or no?
You can make it, yeah, just you. Hold on. Let me go like this.
Yeah.
There you
okay.
go, Brie.
Okay. No, not, yeah. So it starts with, I get to pick the next movie. That one is going to give me nightmares. Oh, you're such a baby. It wasn't that scary. You know, that kind of stuff would never really happen. Dun, 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 dun. Like we think normally with zombie apocalypses. And I was like, okay, that's a great start. Oops. God damn it. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. Well, I'm trying to get some sleep. Don't stay up too late. All right, Max. I'll be on the lookout for the boogeyman. Ha ha. Very funny. Stay tuned for Channel 2 Nightly News. In other news, several people have been hospitalized over a strange virus began spreading rapidly throughout the southeast. Sounds like COVID. That's not in the, yeah. Scientists haven't identified the virus yet, but symptoms include slow movement, slurred speech, and violent tendencies. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is recommending that people distance themselves from anyone displaying these symptoms. They're also recommending families gather emergency supplies and make plans in case they're asked to evacuate. Emergency supplies, evacuations. What's going on, Max? So we should get prepared. Let's check the internet. A zombie virus? That doesn't look good, Max. Let's check the CDC website. An emergency preparedness kit. Yep, I'll print this out. Okay, Max, let's see what we can gather up. Next, the pair go down to the basement. Man, I forgot I had this. It used to be my dad's. He always listened to the weather report when storms came through. Guess I'll get the supplies. Well, it looks like we've got everything, Max. Water, flood, radio, flashlight. So it looks like what they're trying to do is get people normalized to a prepared list of things that you might need in case of a zombie apocalypse. In this case, this kind of applies to everything. If you think about it, what's on the list? Flashlights, obviously dog food. In this point, you can see Max at the end that's like, roof, because it looks like his bag is empty. So no one thought about the dog Max. Fucked up. But these are probably a list that maybe we should consider getting if the CDC is making a fucking comic about.
Predictive programming.
So he has like a box here at the top left-hand corner. If you can't see, there's like a bunch of random shit, but it says potato chips. Someone knew what I was thinking. Well, that should do it. Let's see if there are any new developments. Let's see what the rocket is about. Meow. Wow, Max. Looks like they're everywhere. Huh? So it's like they're going around and basically zombies are infiltrating their entire neighborhood. Did Mrs. Clemens let you out again? You know you're not supposed to run off like that. Just then, the pull sound of a shuffle and moaning can be heard from outside. Maybe we should take a break from the horror, Maxis. I'm acting like Julie, jumping from every noise. The poor dog. Dog probably has rabies too.
Zombie rabies.
And then Miss Clemens at the bottom looks like she's sick. Miss Clemens, you don't look so good. Maybe you should lie down. I'll bring Snowball back for you. You guys can see how this goes. Obviously, Miss Mellons is hit with the zombie virus. I just think it's funny that the CDC did this.
Hilarious.
They're like, this poor boy. I mean, they went through a lot of work, if you ask me. The
That's your
moral of the
tax
story
dollars at
is
work
what?
there.
Is what? Quarantine. And that's it.
It sounds like
and
literally
die.
this is their comic for COVID.
Yeah. Do you know what this comic misses in a zombie apocalypse?
Guns. How did I know?
That wasn't a
He did
BB
not.
gun, I'll tell you that much.
He
You have
did
some
not.
you have a great sound effect board, Tony.
That's my soundboard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get mine real quick.
Ooh,
That was
Brie,
really
Inception.
Infinity.
That was really scary.
What?
I just think it's interesting though, because sorry, I don't know why the screen's doing that. We're having our own zombie apocalypse.
Always.
Basically the moral of the story though is like, oh, nothing's happening. Let's rinky dinky dink online. And then the fucking neighbor is a zombie. And it doesn't really lead to anything crazy and surprising. It's just interesting that even the CDC, even though it was very mellow, because, you know, children might be reading it and whatnot.
Doubt it.
Well, who else is looking at? I don't know.
It's your tax dollars at work.
I have a question for everyone. I have a question.
Fucking
How
well
do
spent.
we-
Money well spent.
How do we factor sci-fi zombies? Like, how do we approach the factor sci-fi of zombie?
Well, let's do it.
Because I feel like I can't fact or sci-fi it because there's so many facets to it. Like, I'm not going to deny the fact that it was used as a manipulation tool in the past to manipulate slaves, right? But I don't think necessarily that there are a modern version of zombies running around.
Well, you have mad cow disease.
Yeah.
That's true.
That
Okay.
sci-fi is it though.
There's that fungus that turns bugs into zombies.
Yep.
True.
I think it's
Fungus.
definitely possible on some
I think
way or
it's
another
possible.
to manipulate
For sure.
science to maybe not
Don't think we
rise
have
from the
it right
dead
now.
zombies, but like a rage
A version
zombie.
of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe if you think about like, you know, genetic manipulation and stuff like that, a lot of people are doing that, these biohacking and things like that. I'm sure that there's a way to do something like that where you turn somebody into your slave, basically.
Yeah.
But that takes
Also-
us back to the more original
They also
version
do
of
that through
zombies
the
and not the
fucking
modern
legacy
version
media.
of that's not the modern version of zombies that we would have today. Like, I don't necessarily think that there's brain
Well,
eating.
I think the takeaway here is like the zombie is so allegorical for so many different facets of humanity.
Mhm.
Whether it be some sort of, like you said, manipulation or some sort of commentary on consumerism or mass hysteria, whatever it might be, all those things are clearly fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like the mystical zombie goes, as far as, you know, spiritual practices bringing things up from the dead, like I'm probably going to lean more towards sci-fi on that. But as far as the phenomenon and what it's evolved into and how the model is applied to various parts of the human experience, it's a hard fact.
Is this a good zombie?
That's a thriller zombie. We didn't even talk about Thriller.
We
did
did not.
Thriller.
Oh,
I
fuck.
know.
We fucked up.
No, I'm a Prince guy.
What about you, Brie? What's your opinion on this factor sci-fi situation? So I don't feel like any of us are really factor sci-fiing it, but give us your
Our factor sci-fi is about factor sci-fi.
exactly.
Yeah.
Give us your final thoughts.
I learned the Thriller dance one time with a close friend of mine,
Nice.
So fact.
and that's all I have to
Yeah.
say. I forgot it already. If you guys didn't know that,
Oh,
I could relearn it real quick. I think if I tried. I'm gonna hit you with all my factor sci-fis, and you guys can decide if you want to factor sci-fi any of them.
Okay.
Tony, what?
Nothing. Go.
I'm gonna fact Haitian zombies. And I'm not separating them because the culture goes back, yes, but it's still prevalent today. Nothing has changed. So if you factor sci-fi them, it is present day factor sci-fiing a Haitian zombie. Is that clear?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
We're all clear.
Okay. Second, traditional zombie? No. I'm going to sci-fi that one. I don't think there's a traditional zombie.
What do you mean by traditional zombie?
Like something that eats flesh. Ooh, or a third factor sci-fi if it could happen. Sci-fi that. No, fact that. Does that make
Word.
sense?
What did you just factor? Sci-fi.
Tony, your turn.
I don't know what just happened.
Okay,
But
I facted Haitian zombies.
sort of.
I'm obviously we all middle bitched. What's his
Haitian
name? I keep
zombies.
We should release a bonus
Bear,
companion
bear,
episode to each episode of just Bree factor sci-fi and things for like 6 hours.
Just straight 6
Like,
hours.
so I've had some time to think about it.
Okay, whatever. So
On the Patreon.
facting the traditional Haitian zombie.
Yes.
Sci-fiing the zombie that we because that could also lead to the possible future. Oh god damn it. Okay, I'll go last.
Okay.
Oh God, we're going back.
We're going back to Bree. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to follow Bobby's path here, and I'm going to sci-fi like the undead rising thing, but I'm going to fact that it's an allegory for societal norms and in the way that we are, kind of forced to behave.
Try
Tony
to get
said
your
none
ass
of-
in here to vote. Sorry.
What did your word just say?
Huh?
What?
What?
Huh?
Huh?
I have a lot of work to do.
Jamie's
Do you guys
turn.
hear all the different
No,
things
I
I'm
already,
looking
I
at,
already,
though?
I already said mine.
Oh. Well, then
Me and Bobby already did ours literally right off the top. So it's just you, Bree. You're the last.
What do you mean? What did
Send
you
us
guys say?
off, Bree.
Wait,
I
what did you
turn,
guys
Bree.
say?
I literally just said I'm not factor sci-fiing any of it because I'm not going to factor sci-fi the actual hate, like the crimes that happened against people regarding voodoo in the Haitian culture. So it's not something that I'm going to comment on. And if we're going to talk about zombies today, I don't think there's zombies that eat brains. That's literally what I said off the top. You just weren't listening.
And that's just like a blanket thing for you?
Yeah, I literally said that, and so did Bobby. He
No, I know, but
basically
I
said the same
I
thing.
don't think that makes sense.
Oh, great,
You
the
guys.
feds
You have
are
to think
here.
about all the different things that we're looking at. That's just such a blanket term. You have to like think about it.
Wait a minute. Somewhere around here, I got my FBI.
We're
ID.
professionals.
Hi, everyone. I've come to invade.
Factor sci-fi. There's 3 things though. You can't
Is
blanket
there?
term like these people.
Sci-fi.
Bam. All
You're
3.
kicked out. You can go back to England now.
Okay, bye.
That was awesome.
That was good shit.
Good shit.
Well, that was fun, everybody. Thanks for coming down to Bobby's Cryptid Corner. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, any final thoughts, anybody?
Bree, any final thoughts?
Any final- Bree.
No, I obviously think way too hard for you guys. I'll save it to myself in my diary. I'm gonna have to start a breeze.
You can hear Bree read her
Bigger
diary on the
thinker.
Patreon.
Is there any other shows going on? We have a butt stuff later in the week on Thursday. Bobby, you got any not for everyone
I'm trying
podcasts
to.
coming
I'm
out?
trying to. What do they
In
call
fairness
it?
to Bree, I did
herd
think
cat
there's
right
something
now.
I'm glad that
So
we-
I can't get my co-host to my house to record an episode. We'll see if it
Oh,
happens by
shitty.
next week.
That's
so
what I'm
if he
saying, Enzo. There's
please
a lot
text
to
him.
think about.
Yeah, but anyway, you can go back and listen to the archives of Not For Everyone podcast. You guys kind of got a little taste of it tonight when we just went off
Talked
about zombie
movies.
movies
Exactly.
for a good half hour or so. So
Good
yeah,
shit.
it's just 2 cynical man children talking about shit like this. So it's fun to do sometimes.
All right. Anything for you, Tony? You got anything?
No.
All right, you guys. We love you. We'll see you next week. Tony, what are we doing next week?
The Duende.
The Duende. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Love you all.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.